Welcome in. It is the extended version here of the Deeper Dive live before lock, all in one Yahoo edition. Myself, Matt's in the house here. We have you for the next 30 minutes. Tyler is here for the long haul, as we do have the full Deeper Dive coming your way at the top of the hour. Also live before lock after that. So don't go anywhere. Every site will be hit, but for now, at least, we got you when it comes to Yahoo. Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Scarfed down a quick sandwich before the show, so I'm feeling energized, ready to go.
What sandwich did you go with?
I went with a little meatball sub.
Okay. That could be tough, though, to scarf. Like meatball to scarf, you may be feeling a little indigestion in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. The belly, it's had a lot of training, so it should be well prepared for this moment.
I love it. All right. We got 9 games to look at, so we can't dive too deep into your meatball parm habits. But let's start with 9. This is more up your alley right now. 9 games on the slate, Matt.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy that complains about everything.
No.
9 is still a bit on the high side for me. I like the 6, 7, 8 max. 9, it's like a lot, especially with all the injuries and stuff right now. It's just a lot to be on top of it. So we'll do the best we can, but admittedly, there's probably going to be some things that slip through the cracks.
Right. So do you have a way when you start to go north of 8 games on a slate? We'll use 9 as a minimum here because it fits our conversation. How do you approach that from more of a streamlining standpoint without overlooking some key elements?
Yeah, I think I like to really kind of just hone in on the games that I think are going to be the best. Like we have some games tonight with a total below 210. We have other games with totals approaching 230. So I'm going to spend the most of my attention focusing on the games that I think should be the best for fantasy.
All right, so let's start there. And we begin at the point. We'll roll through it. You mentioned injuries, Doncic, Ball. We're dealing with that. There are also some decent pay-up options here as well with Steph and the record, this narrative that's been following Curry, right? The record, he needs 7 to pass Ray Allen. Trae Young's up there. So 3 of the top 5 guys we have available to us normally are hurt and missing time. So I don't know if that means this is more of a pay-up option for a Young or Curry, or maybe you're looking at a different game entirely.
Yeah, so Jalen Brunson's going to get the majority of the attention at point guard tonight, projected for over 65% ownership at the moment, but he's just very tough to avoid with no Doncic. He's averaged over 1.05 fantasy points per minute. We have him projected for right around 34 minutes on today's slate. So, from a raw point expectation, he grades out as one of the better options at the position. And he is, significantly cheaper than most of the point guards. So it's tough to get away from him. I have him, in a large majority of my lineups at the moment. I think you can tell yourself that, maybe going with Brunson plus another point guard makes sense. But if I'm only playing one point guard, it's probably going to be him.
Yeah, and I mean, the chalk is there, right? He's 65% plus rostered in Yahoo leagues, according to our projections. You look, though, at our boom bust tool as well. He's right there at the highest by a wide margin over a couple of guys on Toronto. So the chalk balanced out with the propensity of him being the best boom player in the game tonight on the slate may mitigate eating some of that chalk.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when eating the chalk is the correct decision. It's what's hard about DFS sometimes, right? You got to differentiate the good chalk from the bad chalk. But like you said, all the metrics on Brunson point to him being good chalk. Boom score north of 61%, bust score below 8%. His floor projection right now we have for almost 33 fantasy points. You'll gladly take a floor game from Brunson at $19. And if he hits his ceiling, obviously we have plenty of upside potential as well.
All right, you're looking, mentioned Van Vliet. He's popping in there as well, also getting some good ownership. We can start to look a little lower too if you wanted to find maybe a cheaper option that you can get to that's also pivoting away from ownership. Armani Brooks is always going to be there as far as a cheaper option on that Houston slate. So where else outside of the heavy chalk with Brunson at the point?
Yeah, I do like Armoni at $12. I think that's a good price tag for him. But I would say the guy that I'm looking at next is probably Reggie Jackson. You've got Paul George, doubtful for the Clippers. Reggie Jackson's usage rate in their last game was 35.5%. I think he's just got excellent scoring upside for that price tag, even in a tough matchup against the Suns. I also don't hate paying up for Trey as a contrarian or somewhat contrarian option. He's still expected for around 20% ownership, but the Hawks just stand out as like a clear target on this slate. Their implied team total right now is 118.75. No one else is above 113.25. So they're projected for about 5.5 more points than at least, than every other team on the slate. So the Hawks are a team that I'm definitely trying to get exposure to, and that starts with Young at the top end.
Yeah, I mean, again, similar situation with Brunson where it's pretty much equal. Our boom percentage for Young is at 19.4. The ownership right now at 19.6. So you're not losing a ton of leverage by any means, and it makes sense as far as getting to Hawks in this game here. All right, so we'll keep it moving. Hit the shooting guard now. Did we lose anybody out there on that slate? At the point, I think we covered a lot. So I just want to make sure that there wasn't anybody else that you were getting to, even on a smaller scale, Matt.
Last name I'll throw out is Tyus Jones, just because I'm always going to be interested in Tyus when Ja's out of the lineup. Yep. Not an ideal matchup against Philly. Not a game that I'm looking for a ton of exposure to, but I think Tyus is still underpriced considering his role.
All right, so let's move to the shooting guard, and especially without Booker, Suns playing tonight, there really is only one guy that you're spending some money, and it's not even a spend up. So that may be a little more appealing to get to Beal, depending on how you like this matchup with Washington and Denver. Reminder, too, out there, the full deeper dive coming your way in about 22 minutes, live before lock following that. Hit that thumbs up button if you're hanging with us, the Yahoo edition here of both myself and Matt. Make sure you're subscribed as well. Take advantage of what we have with Yahoo. We're going to give you $10 free to play with, 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum just for signing up and being new to Yahoo, and then take advantage of everything that we have on site that we keep telling you about, the boom bust tool, ownership tools, and everything else. So let's move to the 2 spot, man. And again, I feel like this has been a theme here, especially if we see an injury or two up there at the top. Bradley Beal only $34 when you look at other spend-up options on the slate. Are you getting to much of Beal tonight with that matchup on the road in Denver?
Yeah, not really. Beal is somebody that I think we kind of just have to lower our expectations on with him moving forward. He just hasn't been the same fantasy player this year that he's been in the past. I kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday with Karl Anthony Towns. Like the price just hasn't adjusted enough to this point. Given what the numbers have been, right? And Beal just hasn't given us a ton of value at this price tag. So even as a contrarian option, I'm not particularly interested in him tonight.
All right. So I saw this too on the chat. It was going this way. Darius Mills asking about love for LeVert. And clearly over the last couple of games, he stepped up. $20 may not be reflecting that price, at least, of what we've seen recently. And maybe we can get under that number there at a good value.
Yeah, so shooting guard, I think one of the most interesting decisions tonight is right in that $20 range. You've got Gary Trent Jr. at 20. You've got LeVert at 20. You've got Desmond Bane at 21. You've got Tim Hardaway Jr. at 17. Those guys are all projected to catch some ownership. Trent right now popping as the most popular. He's at around 29%. And I get the logic with Trent. He's got a great matchup versus the Kings. The Raptors have just absolutely nobody right now. They've been decimated by injuries, but I do think I would give LeVert the edge at the same price tag, especially when you factor in that he's checking in with nearly half ownership. I just think LeVert has a bit more upside, evidenced by his 48 fantasy points in his last game. So I would give the edge to LeVert over Trent. But I am definitely also going to get some exposure to Tim Hardaway Jr. at 17. That's another game that I think could have a lot of fantasy value. The Mavericks and the Hornets. Hornets have been just a great matchup all year. They're poor defensively. They play at a wicked fast pace. And Tim Hardaway Jr. has been excellent with Doncic off the court this season. He didn't show it in his last game. His minutes were down in a blowout win. I think this is an awesome bounce back spot for him.
Real quick, I wanted to go back to this double R with an interesting question because we were talking about the point guard spot. You brought up Reggie Jackson, how much you were getting to him. Schroeder, an interesting pivot option. Double R asking that in the chat for you, Matt.
Yes, and I mean Schroeder's fine. I don't have a ton of Schroeder at the moment, but when you look at this Celtics team, there are obviously some shots available, but with Josh Richardson out. But the fact that Jaylen Brown is going to be back in the lineup tonight does hurt Schroeder. So I'm not really looking at him as a pivot tonight.
All right. So beyond Beal, we talked also about the option here with LeVert, and we are kind of waiting to see what happens with Justin Holiday as well, coming back to this game tonight. So the Pacers dealing with at least that possibility of getting him back. Is there anybody else that you were looking at maybe as an even cheaper option that we can get to saving money? You mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. at $17. So I don't know if you have to go any less. It's the Duarte revenge game, right? One of the teams that passed on him. So I don't know if
didn't
that's
the whole league
you.
pass on him?
Yes.
No, he was like the 14th pick.
But it's enough, right? The whole lottery did. That's for sure.
I'd go Luke Kennard. Is I think interesting at 11 if Paul George is out. Same goes for Duncan Robinson at 11. Robinson was awesome without all the heat missing in their last game. 31 and change over just 27 minutes. He shot the ball a ton in his limited playing time, third highest usage rate of the year, I believe. So I think that those are two pretty strong $11 options.
All right, so we move on now to the 3 spot here, and Terrence Mann, and this is again an opportunity here to target the absence of Paul George for the Clippers, and clearly people are doing that with Terrence Mann. He is the punt tonight when it comes to at least rostership, just under 35%. We have projected on our ownership projections on Awesemo for Terrence, and that's the 3rd highest guy on the slate. So is he just, is that what this is basically tonight? Cost saving at the 3, take advantage of minutes and volume at the very least on the back end with Mann because you don't have George and they're already without Leonard.
It's pretty tough to avoid him at the absolute minimum,
Yeah.
The minutes have been there. 32 2 games ago, 35 and a half last game without George. Not the highest usage player, but he's a good rebounder for a guard. Like there's definitely appeal to Mann. He's averaged about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute. So if you again expect him to get over 30 minutes, it's just very hard for him to bust at only $10. So he's somebody that I will plan to be over the field on, but I do think you want to, when you start talking about playing Mann alongside Brunson, now you're getting to the point where you've got to really start thinking about ownership with the rest of your lineup.
So let's look at the top here. Jason Tatum, Brown, right? We also know talking about guys coming back here and the reinsertion, if you will, with Jaylen Brown in this lineup. So maybe that was the pathway to take advantage of the fact that we may not get $26 type costs for Brown once he gets back into the fold. But at the same time here for the 3, I wonder what that does for Tatum, who previously without Brown back, $44 is pretty much what you can expect. But now I think it's safe to say that there should be a little dip in his productivity with Brown. Even if Brown's on a minutes count, there should be a little bit of dip with Tatum, right?
44 is too expensive for Tatum with a healthy Jaylen Brown. I mean, we've kind of seen that all year. I have no problem fading him. And again, he's not going to be popular. We have him at around 12% ownership. This definitely seems like a position where people are going to save down. But I would rather, if I am trying to be different, I'd rather go with a Gordon Hayward at $28. I'd rather go with Dylan Brooks at 25. I think those guys are giving you better value than you're going to get from Tatum at 44.
Yeah, I actually really like that matchup for Brooks against the Sixers tonight, especially score heavy. I know that Thibault is going to be roaming all around, but I doubt it's going to be the heavy focus there. So Brooks actually becomes a pretty good option in that mid 20 range, 25, right? Just under the $3 more that you'd spend for Hayward at 28. Any love for Barnes? I would never ask you for Wiggins. Any love for Barnes?
I've been playing Harrison Barnes. The minutes are not there at the moment. They're going to come back eventually. So I still think 23 is not a huge source of savings. I think you can find better price tags on him at other spots throughout the industry. So we talk about that all the time, right? That's the beauty of playing on multiple sites. You can use the guys on FanDuel or on Yahoo who are popping as values on Yahoo. Barnes is not one of those guys.
2 punt options to counter the heavy ownership for Matt. Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle. 0 for 2, right?
0 for 2. Listen, Danny Green's had some games, some viability, but not recently. He had a nice little spike in playing time there for a while, but he's back under 20 minutes a game night. I think we can pretty easily leave him alone. If you're going to pivot, I think you're better off with Eric Gordon. He's at $12, still serving as one of the Rockets' main sources.
Did we lose Matt? Or did you lose me? Okay, so we lost Matt because he was frozen there. And that's what I was wondering is if Matt, because sometimes when that happens and you're sitting there like on a Zoom call and you keep talking because you think that the other person is frozen, it turns out that you're the one frozen the whole time and you feel like a jackass because you've talked your way through it. All right, so Matt froze. We'll try and get him back up there big time by all means. All right, and let's keep it moving as he was mentioning more on the 3 and just as another pivot for Eric Gordon, $12. So you're not losing much money at all there with Gordon at Yahoo. So we'll get him back up, I'm sure. I don't know if it was maybe the weather or you know what it was? I guarantee you I know what it was. That damn meatball parm snuck up on him. See, we warned him at the start of the show. It's going to start. It's going to creep in about 15 minutes in. All of those meatballs that he pounded in that hoagie or grinder, whatever the hell they call it up north there. And now look, they had to take a little bit of a break by all means. So Gordon at $12, and you're definitely getting something if you're moving away from the ownership with Terrence Mann. The 4, and I'm sure Matt, just because this has been the theme here that we've talked a lot about whenever Giannis is on the slate, which seems to be a ton, is $57 or not, you're going to spend up. And at this point, we've saved money on this slate with either or both Mann and Brunson. What's up, brother? We thought it was the meatball that may have got you.
No, my router just reset. I don't know why. This is the second time that this has happened in the past few weeks. I'm going to have to dive into this situation.
It's all good, man. We were trying to figure out if it was the weather or the meatballs that got you, but you're back. All right. So as I was saying, and this has been the theme with you, especially on slates where we've been able to save money ahead of time at other positions, but it doesn't matter if Giannis is 50, 57, 65, whatever the case is. If it's a Giannis night, we're spending up, right? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm getting a Giannis tonight, if we're being 100% honest. I will have some. Don't get me wrong. Giannis right now projected for 3% ownership. I will have more than 3% on Giannis, but I do think that there are some, appealing pivots to Giannis at power forward and, not to spoil center, but there's someone there that's going to cost us a pretty penny that I think we need tonight. Okay,
so you're not getting to many, if at all, of those super spend up options where you're paying the high amount for Jokic and Giannis. Saving
I would rather.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd rather go with Kristaps at 34 I think that he's, again, another player who should benefit from Doncic being out. Again, targeting this Hornets matchup, which is a really good one. I think he stands out as like the ideal play at the position. Again, ownership is going to be the question here. So if you're looking to go, a little bit more contrarian, if you're worried about your lineup being too chalky, then Al Horford is somebody that's popping really favorably in the boom bust tool. He has right now a boom rate of, I just had it. Sorry, boom rate 34.5. 22.88%. That is a top 10 mark on the slate, but he's projected for like 5% ownership. So I think Horford is an interesting pivot if you want to differentiate your lineups, but like just from a pure spending up for points perspective, Porzingis is the best play.
What about Collins? You mentioned getting to this game. He is getting a lot of rostership so far, and it is outweighing a little bit where we have him projected on our boom tool. But again, you mentioned getting to as much Atlanta as possible, somewhat of a cheaper option on this slate, not saving a ton compared to Kristaps. But again, I would imagine a better option than the guys in his range from Tobias Harris to Draymond Green.
Yeah, the thing with Collins is I never like playing him when he's going to be chalk. I just don't think he has that big of a ceiling at this price tag, even in a great matchup. He's somebody that I'm more interested in targeting on nights when I think the field is overlooking him. So, can Collins give us value at this price tag? Sure. But can he give us GPP value where he's going to bury us if we fade him? I don't think so. So I'm fine with being, underweight on Collins. I'll have some, but nowhere near 31%.
All right. So we wind down. Anybody else on the bottom range, a $12 to $10 option that is worth throwing out, even if it's somebody that the field is getting to here? Is there anybody else worth a mention on the punt before we end with the center spot where you already know where we're going?
Well, Boucher is not 10 to 12, but he's going to be
picking up a ton of steam. Yeah.
He's going to be the chalk at the position. He's fine. Of all the guys we've talked about that are projected for like 35+% ownership tonight, he's the one I'd feel most comfortable fading. So I'll pivot potentially to a guy like Marvin Bagley, who's down at 12. A similar type of per minute player. And I think that the minutes should be there for him too with Richaun Holmes sideline. So I'm cool with Marvin Bagley instead of Boucher, given the massive gap in projected ownership.
All right, let's hit that center spot before we get out of here. And again, a reminder, if you're hanging with us, we appreciate you big time. Hit that thumbs up button as we're diving through everything with Yahoo first and foremost. Lofty and Adam coming your way in about 7 minutes or so with the full-on deeper dive. So I saw a couple of questions about some other sites. They're going to answer everything you have, and then live before lock coming your way an hour from then. So we have you covered right up until this slate locks. As always, the only thing we ask in return is that little thumbs up button. Make sure you smash away. All right, speaking of which, I imagine that this is the get to Jokic night. Can't fault you for getting to Jokic over Embiid on this one, but I am curious, after you lay out all the 50 reasons why Jokic is the play tonight, I am curious how much of Embiid you are getting to just in bigger lineups that you're building.
Yeah, I think Embiid is a bit pricey for me right now. $56 for Jokic, $49 for Embiid. I think that the gap between those two players is a little bit larger than that. Especially since Jokic, at least at the current time, isn't projecting as like heavy chalk, right? We have Jokic at 18% ownership, Embiid at 15%. I'm just going to play Jokic there every time. The guy has just been on an insane heater of late. And if you look at their current injury situation, he could be asked to do even more today. They've got Gordon questionable. Will Barton is questionable. Now, we're not talking a huge sample size here. Jokic has played 31 minutes this year with Gordon, Porter, and Barton off the court. Usage rate, 50%, averaging 2.5 FanDuel points or Yahoo points per minute. Absurd.
Wow. Wow.
So, and again, it's a small sample size, but 31 minutes isn't nothing.
Yeah.
So
right.
I wouldn't expect him to average 2.5 Yahoo points per minute tonight, but can he get us, 2? I think that's reasonable. So he's just a lock and load smash for me.
Any cheaper options that we can get to? I mean, maybe the matchup with Miles Turner at $21. You also have some cheaper options. And again, we're awaiting what's going on with DeAndre Ayton. So it's pretty hard to ignore if he's out what you could get at $14 with JaVale McGee.
It's the biggest question on the slate, right? I don't know if we'll have ownership before lineup or before we'll have news on that before lineup lock. But if we knew for sure Ayton was going to miss, McGee would be, 75, 80% owned, I would imagine, at $14. The guy is one of the best per minute centers in the league. And he can just do so much damage if you're going to give him 25, 30 minutes in a game. So I'm building. I have plenty of McGee at the moment. I'm willing to take that risk. If Ayton sits, I feel like you're getting a smash. And if he doesn't, so well. We took our shot. Sometimes you miss.
Hey, you got to, especially in this world, right? Sitting on the bench ain't going to win you any money. So no argument there. At Matt LaMarca on Twitter, at Shander Show for me. Thank you to everybody hanging with us. Please hit that thumbs up button as we, the two of us, are on our way out. But you're not going anywhere. As mentioned, Lofty and Adam coming your way right now for the deeper dive. We've got Live Before Lock, the whole slate taking care of you tonight. Click on that link below. Really, the first one is for everybody, $10 just to play with. And then if you're new to Yahoo, you're going to get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All you need to do is just sign up and put in your first contest entry. All right, man. We'll do it all again Thursday, right?
Always fun.
See you, brother. Thanks again, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Full deeper dive right now.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Dave Loughran, along with me, as always, Adam Scher at Ship My Money DFS. Hit me up at Lafayette_D. And, well, hit that thumbs up, too. If you're just jumping in or you're here from the last show, whichever it is, appreciate you being with us. Hammer that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. And what's going on, brother?
How's it going, man? Nice 9-gamer to kick off the week. Back to normal size slates. It's nice not having like a 13-game run on Monday.
Yeah, you had a 13 on a Wednesday, I think, last week.
That sounds right. Yeah.
They're not fun at all.
No, and it sucks because then it's like, that's not fun. And then the next day they're like, oh, yeah, everybody's off. So here are your 3.
Right. You know, we had a period there. Maybe it was a couple of years. I think it was the season pre-COVID where like every day was maybe 7 to 9 with some 5s mixed in, maybe a 4 here and there. It was
they made like a concerted effort to stop doing this.
Yeah. If you remember like 5 or 6 years ago, though, there would be nights like Tuesdays and Thursdays with 2 games, sometimes 1 game.
Yeah, TNT Thursday were like the only games being played were on TNT.
Anyway, 9 games, fine with me. We got an hour to kick it off. Then we'll turn it over to Josh Engelman, Greg Ehrenberg for Live Before Lock. And then stick around for NFL Live Before Lock with Matt Savoca, with Neil Orfield, Eric Lindquist, because apparently everyone in the NFL has COVID now, Adam. So Tyler Higbee, Darrell Henderson was already out. Tyler Higbee's out now. Jalen Ramsey's out. It's going to be a fun final few weeks of the season for sure.
I keep like forgetting what day it is or that there's football tonight. So I was really confused why everybody cared so much that Higbee had COVID when there's a chance he'd be out in a couple of days. But it makes a lot more sense when you remember they're playing tonight.
That there's a game tonight. Yeah, that'll do it. So stick around for all of that. And again, help us combat the YouTube overlords. I wouldn't ask if it didn't help us a ton to feed that algorithm. If you like this content, hit that thumbs up and help us get to 70,000 subscribers, 68,300. Let's make that happen. Oh, and if you want to join the channel, hit that join now, get the badges, the custom emojis. We'll always shout you out as well. Priority access and questions, and you get a free super chat every month. So if you want to do that, fair game, go for it. Let's dive into this. We got 9 games, only an hour to make it happen. I'll ask you the question I always ask you though. How much of a stars and scrub slate can we get to today, especially given that there's some pretty significant injuries with guys that are already out and players that haven't been priced appropriately? Yeah,
it seems pretty stars and scrubby. At the very least, it seems scrubby. Like you don't have to pay up for, a 12K Jokic or an 11K Embiid or 11.6 Giannis. You certainly can. And we'll talk about that as we go through. But I think it's one of those slates where you're going to be paying down. It's just a matter of, do you pay all the way up at the other spots or do you go more balanced there and maybe get a little bit more upside into your lineup by, getting to a couple of 8K guys instead of like a 12K guy. So that's, I think, the decision, but there is some very, very good value on this slate.
I mean, how surprised are you that DraftKings left Reggie Jackson and Jalen Brunson sub 6K today?
Yeah, pretty crazy. I mean, Brunson was $5,300 yesterday. He was 83% owned in the big $15 DraftKings tournament.
How many games were on yesterday? So I don't play on
5. There were 5 games, and he was 83% owned.
Jeez.
So,
yeah, and Jackson hasn't been superb without George, but it's still, it's still 30+% usage rate. So,
yeah, exactly. And honestly, Jackson is a good value, obviously, but he's not even like one of the guys that stands out on this particular slate.
So many guys out today. Jimmy Butler's still out. Most of the players for Charlotte still out. Let's dive into it. We'll make it happen. Miami and Cleveland. Let's kick it off with this one. There are 3 7 p.m. games for what it's worth. The Heat getting 5 points on the road. 208 total here against the Cleveland team that's – my mic's messing up? How? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Okay.
He said he's trying. You sounded like you got zapped by an alien or something.
Any better?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Miami zapped by an alien. Got probed. +5. Cleveland favorites at home. Let's just start off with the fact that Jimmy Butler's out. And I think we can also throw in with Caleb Martin being out as well. He played the last game on the 8th. He'd been playing 30+ minutes in back-to-back games. Kyle Lowry's 1.09 DraftKings points per minute in the handful of games he's played with Butler off the floor this season. What are we doing with this backcourt?
Yeah, there's definitely minutes to go around here. You take Caleb Martin out. He was playing a lot. Last game, Gabe Vincent got the start. He played about 30 to 31 minutes. He's a decent fantasy producer. On this particular slate, I wouldn't say he's a top value, but he certainly is a reasonable value that you can get to if you're playing a bunch of lineups. Kyle Lowry has seen a bump in production without Butler, a little over fantasy point per minute, but he's also priced up to 8K on DraftKings. So I think he looks reasonable, but certainly doesn't stand out on this slate. It's also a pretty difficult spot for Miami. Cleveland is a good team. They're solid defensively. The Heat only have a 101 implied total right now. So I think that this is a team in general that you can get to, but it's not one of the ones that stands out as far as having anyone that I expect to just be like jamming into a ton of lineups tonight.
Yeah, and ownership would bear that out too, right? None of these guys are really popular. Like I think Lowry's around 14%. Yeah, Lowry's around 14%, Tyler Hero around 10%, but none of these guys pulling even close to the ownership that some of the guys we already talked about to kick off the show are. So more so secondary options. Are there any good spots, though, if I were to rephrase this, are there any good spots that you would look at and say, you know what, this actually does make for a great tournament play off from a pivot off of a similarly priced player that might be getting, 2, 3, even 4 times the ownership tonight?
So one spot that interests me, so actually one thing to mention before I forget it, Tyler Hero 6,400, I believe, on FanDuel. That he struggled a little bit, but he's got a 30% usage rate without Butler or Bam on the floor. That's a really cheap price tag. On DraftKings, it's more of a tournament play for me, and he is still getting some ownership. But
Lowry's 6,900.
Yeah, so that looks really good as well. He's at 1.03 FanDuel points per minute. Hero's at 0.94 without Butler or Adebayo, but one spot that interests me on DraftKings is Dwayne Dedmon. He's 5K at center. He's been really hit or miss since Bam's injury, but he played about 29 minutes last game and left a few minutes on the table. Could have played more. The reason that I'm really interested in him here, though, isn't really what he did last game so much as he's going up against a Cleveland front court that is massive. They're going to start Jarrett Allen alongside Evan Mobley. You're going to have Kevin Love sub in off the bench. You have Lauri Markkanen. It's a spot where I would be surprised if Miami tries to play small here. I think that as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, it's likely that Dedmon plays a lot of minutes. So it's still difficult to prioritize him. And it's why he's only projected for about 8% ownership on DraftKings. You have plenty of value. A lot of it's in the front court on this slate. And so it's difficult to, just say, oh yeah, Dedmon's a top play, but I don't think it would be surprising at all if he got to 30 minutes here and he's close to a fantasy point per minute guy.
On the other side of this one, he's expensive, so it's going to be tough to get there, but has Darius Garland taken a huge step forward this season or what? I know that I know that Colin Sexton is out, understandably so, but Garland's having a phenomenal year.
Yeah, he's been really, really good. He's definitely taken a step forward. Kind of wish I still had his Top Shot that I spent like $1,000 on back in the peak Top Shot days.
It's probably like 200 now anyway.
Probably something like that, yeah. I could probably get back in if I really wanted to. But yeah, he's been great. And like you said, the salary's gone up, but he is also playing big minutes. So he's someone, the Cleveland side of this game, I think is kind of comparable to the Miami side. I prefer guys. I think a lot of the guys on Cleveland look a little bit better than the guys on Miami, but it's comparable in that I don't think there's necessarily one guy that stands out as a great play, but there's a lot of guys that you can use, when you're building your tournament lineups and you're ideally, having around a third of your lineup, be contrarian high upside plays and the rest be, the quote unquote best plays on the slate. I think Cleveland fits in pretty well there. The highest owned guy on DraftKings right now, Markkanen and Rubio, both at about 7%, Mobley at 6%, Garland at 3%. Garland's playing huge minutes in competitive games. He has a 28% usage rate in the games that he's played without Colin Sexton. He still looks like a solid option. He has 50 fantasy point upside. Jarrett Allen, a center, always difficult to get to, but he could potentially play a lot of minutes here. He's only getting about 2% ownership. Evan Mobley with power forward eligibility, likely to play a lot of minutes. He's around the fantasy point per minute guy. His ownership will be driven down because you have power forward value and you also have guys like Kristaps Porzingis, who's $900 more and just going to draw a ton of ownership. So Mobley makes sense in tournaments. I think this is it's an appealing game for tournaments. It's one where I doubt that I end up with a ton of exposure to any individual player, but I think I'll just have a lot of lineups that end up having like a Cleveland piece mixed in.
It also helps too that they're not getting blown out every game. They're fifth in the East.
There's blowout risk in this game, and it is not that Cleveland might get.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
I know. They have the third best defensive rating in the league this year. They're playing good basketball. And it's certainly helping Garland because in a close game, like you said, he's playing. If in a competitive game, you're getting what, 37 minutes from Garland, 38 minutes. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's what you would expect.
Anything else from either side of this one?
That's about it. Just I think all of the normal rotation pieces on Cleveland are at least viable in tournaments. On the Miami side, kind of the same thing. Lowry, Hero, Dedmon, Vincent are all fine.
So with the Warriors on the road against Indy on this East Coast road trip, 3.5-point favorites, 213 total. Curry's taken a little step back lately, really struggled against. Let me tell you something, man. If Matisse Thybulle was not constantly in foul trouble, and that's a problem of its own right, this guy's one of the best defenders if you could stick him on a guy like Curry for 35 minutes a game, 30 minutes a game, he absolutely hounded him. The only time Curry got anything going last game was when Matisse Thybulle was off the floor in foul trouble. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's a good defender. Just needs to play offense and stop fouling.
Yeah, I mean, his offense is near the bottom of the league, but that's besides the point. Steph Curry is 11-4, and I know we've pretty much said the same thing about Curry all season long, even though he has that massive ceiling and insane blow-up potential. If you're playing Curry today at that price point, 11K plus, that means that you're getting away from Giannis. That means you're getting away from Nikola Jokic. And he just appears to kind of be the odd man out in these situations.
Yeah, exactly. It's really difficult for me to get there today. There's some slates where, I think he's a little bit overpriced for his medium projection, but the fact that he just has such a wide range of outcomes and is capable of knocking down 10 3-pointers in any game makes it somewhat appealing. But today, he's getting like 2% ownership on DraftKings. So anytime you get Curry at 2%, it makes some sense. But Giannis, for example, on DraftKings is only getting 8% ownership. Giannis averages 1.7 to 1.75 DraftKings points per minute. For the season, Curry's at 1.42. So I would just need a bigger ownership gap typically to get to Curry over someone like Giannis.
Is Golden State a team that you're just largely avoiding tonight in general?
Yeah, pretty
Gray's
much.
Questionable, by the way.
Who?
Isn't Draymond Green questionable? I thought I saw that earlier. I thought I saw it pop up a little bit ago.
He's not on the 4:30 injury report.
He's in. Yep, he's in. Earlier in the afternoon, he was questionable. He's good. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the comparison I made this morning with Josh is that Golden State's kind of turning into Utah from a DFS standpoint, where Curry, Green, Poole, Wiggins, no one's going to tell you not to play them if you build a lineup that you like and they're in it. But they also don't really stand out because they've just been in the same role for like the entire season now, and the price tags have adjusted. So Jordan Poole certainly gives you upside. Draymond Green at 6,800 gives you upside, but I think they're priced for their normal 32 minutes or so.
The way I always put it too is if I see a winning lineup and Curry's in it, I'm not going to go, oh, that's weird. Right. But because you can understand how someone would play. He's 1.6% projected ownership today. That's the only thing I keep coming back to.
Right. Like there's anytime someone tells you Steph Curry is going to be 2% owned, he, at least to some extent, is a good play. It's just a matter of, is he a good enough play that he's going to start getting into my lineups? And on a slate of this size, where I think there's a lot of good low owned plays, I have trouble getting there. If you told me, like last I checked, we had Jokic at 21% and then we have Giannis at 8. Let's say Jokic gets to 30 and Giannis gets to 30. I don't know how that would possibly happen, but just saying it did. And Curry's still at 2. Then it's like, okay, like I can just win a tournament if Steph Curry beats Jokic and Giannis. But here with the ownership the way it is right now, it's kind of just like, okay, Giannis at 8% is functionally doing the same thing as Curry, and he just projects a lot better.
No doubt. Do the Pacers have anyone that can really dog Curry? I mean, and keep him from knocking down threes at will? I
mean, Brogdon defends well, but
yeah, he's good. I don't know if he's good enough.
Yeah, I assume most people aren't.
Pacers allowing the 13th highest 3-point percentage, so they're middle of the league in all of that. Nothing really stands out about it outside of Curry being insanely low owned. And if he goes out there and he rips off a 50 real point game, you wish you had some of them. The problem is Jokic has just been so good that it feels automatic at this point that he's not going to crush your lineups.
Well, right. And like, there's nothing stopping Jokic or Giannis from also ripping off a 50-point game that also has like 18 rebounds.
Yeah. Didn't Jokic just I thought he just had a game that broke records in terms of never been done before. where was it? It was I can't remember. I'd have to pull it up. I was looking at it the other day, but it wouldn't surprise anybody. He's that good. And we'll talk about him shortly. How about the Pacers against the Golden State Warriors top ranked defense?
This is another team that I don't think you're getting to them in cash games. I don't think you're prioritizing any of them individually in tournaments, but this entire team is sub 10% owned. Talking about a team that plays huge minutes in competitive games. Malcolm Brogdon is 7,900 on DraftKings. He likely gives you 37 or 38 minutes in a pace up spot if this game's competitive. Sabonis sub 10K is always reasonable. LeVert likely to play 34 minutes. Miles Turner has been playing huge minutes recently. He played like 36 minutes last time out. He has at least 34 minutes in 3 of his last 5. He's a good, point per minute producer. He's only center eligible, which hurts, but it's another team where I think kind of similar to Cleveland, mixing in some of these guys, here and there just to lower the ownership of your lineup while still maintaining a ceiling makes sense.
Yeah. Somebody said another hoodie, huh, Laffy? You must not have watched me in any other cold weather seasons. Wear sweatshirts every damn day once it hits like November around this. It's cold around our way.
That's the only good part of fall is I can just start wearing hoodies every day.
Yeah, it's cold around our way, man. Anyway, Saturday was 66 and it broke records for this time of year.
Yeah. It was like Saturday was crazy because it was like really, really windy here. So I just assumed it was freezing and then it was like 68 degrees or something.
Yeah. So I'm gonna rock these hoodies as long as I can, man. Just bought some new ones, as a matter of fact. Anything else you want to hit on here? Someone said Sabonis is going to smash them today.
Yeah, sure. Sabonis is fine. The one thing I guess to keep an eye on is Justin Holiday is questionable. TJ McConnell's still out, so there would still be plenty of minutes for these guys. But if Holiday's back, it's likely that you lose maybe a couple minutes off of Brissett. My best guess is that Keelan Martin would be the one that loses the most minutes. Brissett maybe loses a few minutes, but if Holiday's out, you could potentially see 24 to 25 minutes from a 3K Brissett as well.
Sacramento, Toronto. Is Sacramento has to be a top 3 matchup right now, right?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Anytime any team faces them, you can throw 4 guys out there and they're all probably going to get there. It's nuts. I'm not suggesting you do that on a 4-game slate. We will talk about one guy in the front court that's getting a ton of ownership today for Toronto in a minute. But let's kick it off with the Sacramento Kings. They're on the road against the Raptors, 4.5-point dogs, 221.5 total. Let's start with De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton in the backcourt here. Or actually, we could start with Barnes, who's pulling the most ownership on this team.
Yeah, and I think Barnes, the price is just too cheap. He hasn't played as many minutes as we would like recently, but at the same time, he played 17 minutes in the first half last game. And then in the second half, Sacramento was getting blown out by Cleveland, and they played all of their starters for 7 minutes and 46 seconds. They all went to the bench. The only one that ever came back was Halliburton. The bench went on a huge scoring run, kind of made it a competitive game. But the fact that Barnes played 17 minutes in the first half suggests that he could have been on his way to playing, 34, 35 minutes. Even if you project him for, say, 32 here at 5,100, he still looks like a good value. He hasn't played nearly as well recently, even before his injury and since coming back as he was earlier in the season. But still, overall, he's at 0.95 DraftKings points per minute this year, 0.91 FanDuel points per minute. So if you assume he's going to play at least 31, 32 minutes, he definitely looks like a good value. I think the ownership makes sense. At the same time, 25% is a lot of ownership for Harrison Barnes basically ever. So there's some alternatives you can go to, but he does look like a good value. Marvin Bagley looks very good, assuming he remains in the starting lineup. He's 3,800 on DraftKings. He started the last game, played about 22 minutes, but again, he didn't play at all in the fourth. In the previous game, he had played about 27 minutes off the bench. So assuming he stays in the starting lineup, I think it's likely you get 26 to 28 minutes from him. He's just shy of a fantasy point per minute guy this year. He's still only 3,800. So he looks like one of the better values. And then Tyrese Halliburton has been playing massive minutes this year, recently. He's a solid fantasy producer, 0.9 fantasy points per minute. But if he's going to get 36 minutes or so at 5,700, he looks like a strong play as well.
Malakar, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat and happy birthday. 62 years young. Thank you, guys. He says 62 years, Adam.
Wow. Congrats.
I'll be lucky to get it to 62 for sure. No question. Malakar, you can also be proud of the fact that you are maybe the 1% of our viewers in that age range, which is kind of awesome as well. Exclusive company, man. Gotta love to see it. And no, it's not my birthday. You can wish Malakar happy birthday. Definitely not me, because it's not my birthday. Slim Scully asks, can low ownership bite you in the ass? Yeah, usually does, actually, Adam. I mean, usually guys are low owned because there are better plays on paper.
Yeah, exactly. The low owned, that's kind of why, like, Alex, I know, talks a lot about balancing out your lineup. So, like, typically it's going to end up being, 2/3 more popular guys, 1/3 less popular guys. It's not that the ownership actually like, the ownership doesn't make someone a better play or a worse play. It's just that in general, people are pretty good now, especially in NBA, at figuring out what the good plays are. So normally, if someone's popular, they are a good play. It just comes down to it's easier to win tournaments when good plays do poorly and you don't have them than it is when good plays do well and you have them. Basically, your popular plays, I should say. So like lower owned guys, typically they're lower owned for a reason. It's just a matter of finding guys where their range of outcomes is similar to the more popular guys, even if their median is a little bit lower.
Right. And essentially you're okay taking shots at a guy that might have the same ceiling as another guy, but with a lower probability of getting there that day, because if he does get there at that ownership and the other guy doesn't, it's going to benefit you massively. That's all. Yeah,
exactly. And that it goes hand in hand with someone said, Golden State's opponents typically don't do well. Why are they in the conversation? Like, yeah, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league, but they're in the conversation because you're going to lose most days at DFS regardless. You want to put yourself in positions to make a lot of money when things that are somewhat unusual happen. And when you have a team like Indiana that's going to play their starters 38 minutes in a competitive game, then obviously at low ownership, they start to make sense.
All right. What are we going to do with the Toronto Raptors today, starting with Chris Boucher, he's a fantasy darling, man. Now, I will say he started 16 games for his career, 14 last year, 2 this year, 1.13 DraftKings points per minute in 16 career starts. Those are solid numbers for a guy that's $4,300. I don't know how many minutes he's going to pull today. It's always volatile with a guy like that. But what are you projecting him for?
I have 26. He played 27 last game. He played about 23 to 24 in his first start, where he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. It's always difficult to trust him because Nick Nurse, but it's hard to imagine he plays poorly against the Kings. So that makes me think that it's likely he gets pretty close to full run here. Even if he plays a little bit less than 26 minutes, he would end up looking good. Having power forward eligibility is really useful. He's at 1.02 DraftKings points per minute this year. It's a favorable spot. He just looks like a very strong option. If you're not going there, it's probably for ownership reasons, which is fine. There's plenty of alternatives, but I think that he's pretty clearly one of the better values. If someone doesn't have him in cash, they probably don't know how to play cash. And this is all assuming that he starts, by the way. If we get a lineup that doesn't have Boucher starting, then he becomes extremely risky.
Who would start over him? Just throw Siakam at the 5?
Yeah, I mean, earlier this year, they were going Svi with Siakam at the 5. The last couple of games, they've gone Boucher. If Sacramento is going with Len and Bagley, then I assume they're going Boucher and Siakam again. One side note, we didn't talk about Alex Len. I have no real idea what to do with him. He started and played 12 minutes against Charlotte. He played 24 minutes and 3 quarters in the last game. He's started 5 games this year. He's averaged 20 minutes per game. I think on average, he probably gets in that 20 to 22 minute range here, but it's not like it would be surprising if he plays more. I just don't think you can be that confident in him.
Yeah. In typical Alex Len fashion, no one has any idea.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Outside of Boucher, and you're right, in cash, very simple decision to make there. He is going to be one of the highest owned players, and I think for good reason. In tournaments, I think you could make a good argument for, if you wanted to be different, maybe he really only does, maybe he does start and plays 18, but if he starts and plays 26, you're likely going to want to have him. Aside from that, though, Siakam, Gary Trent, Scotty Barnes, where are you at on these fellas?
Yeah, and with Boucher also, we have him with a 31% chance of being in the optimal lineup. We have him projected for 31% ownership, 52% boom percentage. To me, that just screams good chalk, and I'll probably end up being overweight. I know someone in chat this morning said that he tries to win at DFS, so he doesn't make plays like Boucher. Same goals, different process, I guess. But the rest of the team, not getting nearly as much ownership as Boucher, but they are still pulling some. Siakam at 18, Trent at 16, Barnes at 13, Van Vliet at 9. it's a really good spot. Like there's nothing wrong with getting to these guys. We know that they play huge minutes. If this game is competitive, which is a pretty big if, but Toronto is only favored by about 5 here. Siakam, Barnes, Trent, VanVleet, all likely to play 38 plus. So really good spot for those guys. I like getting to them. They are reasonably priced. Boucher stands out as the clear top guy here, though.
The cursor's on the screen, Tyler, right on Adam's face, tickling his nose. All right. Somebody had a question I was going to answer, but I can't find it. I guess that doesn't matter. Must not have been that important. We'll get there. Thanks, El Negro Loco. Appreciate that, man. So, do you have priority options outside of Boucher from this game? Outside of Boucher?
Priority like that I expect to be like my highest owned guy or anything? No, but I just think I'll get to a lot of Trent, Barnes, Siakam, VanVleet.
Okay. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. You haven't checked them out yet. I would definitely suggest doing so for a couple of reasons. First of all, $100,000 Monday Night Football single game baller today, $20K to first. The negative management fees, other places you may hear referred to as rake, on something like the Sunday $1 Million Baller, where it's a minus 25% management fee, is insane. And a min cash is double your entry fee. You don't get that at a lot of places these days. $20 entry, min cash is $40. You're going to go broke a lot slower playing there, and you're probably going to win a lot more money playing over there as well. So if you haven't signed up at Yahoo yet, use the link in the description or the one that Tyler's about to drop into chat right now, because if you sign up and you deposit $10 or more using that link, you'll get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum on top of being able to play DFS at a great site. It's a $90 value. You got ownership projections, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, the lineup builder, all of our tools. You can get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well. And all of our tools have Yahoo for them. Ownership for Yahoo, boom bust for Yahoo, all of that stuff, top stacks, you name it. All of that stuff for Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a $90 value. All you have to do is sign up and deposit $10 or more, and you'll get $10 in free credit as well when you play there. So it wipes that out. It's totally free. They'll email us your email and we'll hit you up. So join. And when you do, use the link. We'll hit you up and you'll get everything for the entire month, not just football, every single sport, all the tools created by Awesemo himself, #1 ranked DFS player out there. So take advantage of that and join the premium Discord too. Got a good community, and the Office Hours channel where the pros are helping you fine tune your game. You can ask them whatever you want and they'll definitely help you out. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Use that link. Get the free month. Play at Yahoo. You'll love it. All right, let's talk about Milwaukee and Boston. Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of the 3 guys that's really priced up there. I guess you could throw Embiid in there as well as a 4th guy. But Giannis up there quite a bit. What do we do with him against the Celtics today? How much are you getting to right now?
Yeah, I mean, so I haven't crunched yet, but I really like getting to Giannis here. He looks really good. The matchup isn't great, but it's made up for by the fact that this game's likely to be competitive. It's a 1-point spread. It's in Boston. So it's just pretty unlikely this game ends up being a blowout. And we know that Giannis's playing time is pretty dependent on the score. And it can be tough for him to pay off a really expensive salary if he's only going to get, say 29 or 30 minutes. But this game's likely to be competitive. He's averaged, he's the second best per minute fantasy producer in the league this year behind Jokic. One thing that makes him appealing too is that you can roster him at power forward or center, whereas Jokic obviously is only a center. So while next to, if you're just saying who would I rather have, the answer is Jokic. Jokic is higher owned. Jokic is also at the more difficult position to fill. Anytime you can get to Giannis at around 8% ownership is pretty appealing.
By the way, someone was laughing at me saying you'll go broke a lot slower. I say it in jest kind of because, Adam, you know this, right? How many people dive into these tournaments on other sites, kind of not really knowing what they're getting into, and they 150 max it, they cash 60 lineups and still lose money. It happens all the time. If you don't have the bankroll, you're going to get cooked doing that.
For sure.
Yeah, so just saying. Anyway, Christopher had a question. Best advice building a lineup with a super chat, Adam. I'll throw this to you. Best advice building a lineup with late moving parts / what if those parts are out and you've already made other picks based off moving parts playing?
Hold on, let me read that.
I guess he's saying like you're assuming those guys were going to be in, and they end up being. First of all, put all those players that you don't know if they're in or out. Make sure they're in either the utility forward or guard spot, so you actually have contingency plans and not just a single position. Do you get what he's asking or not?
Not really. But so, best advice: building a lineup with late moving parts. What if those parts are out and you've already made other picks based off moving parts playing? You have to late swap. Like I don't really have like good advice other than you just refigure out, like you adjust to the news when it comes and you fix what you can in your lineup.
Yeah. Turn notifications on your phone from Twitter and stay glued to your computer.
Just have no life during basketball season.
If you're hand building though, you got to make sure that those players are at the bottom of your lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Don't, if you're using Fantasy Cruncher or something, it does it automatically. But if you're hand building, that's why you put the earliest games in the most restrictive spots so that you have the most room to move.
Well, that's a good point. Even if there aren't any pending injuries, because anything can happen.
Yeah, sure. Always.
All right. So let's talk about Milwaukee a little bit further here. What do you want to do with the rest of this Bucks team?
The rest of it, so Giannis stands out, but clearly he's the most difficult to get to. Holiday, Middleton, Portis, even Grayson Allen at 4,200, I think offer some upside in tournaments at relatively low ownership. This is a Milwaukee team with a 111 total. It's a tough spot, but they're not getting ownership at all. Giannis leads the way at 8%. Middleton, Drew, Allen, Portis are all 5% or less. So kind of similar to Cleveland, similar to a couple of the other teams we talked about where they're not quite as strong an option as other teams. Like, for example, Toronto is in a better spot against Sacramento with guys that are going to play huge minutes and they project better, but they're also getting more ownership. So I think just, mixing in some of these Milwaukee guys makes some sense.
Did you want to hit on anything with Justin Holiday out?
I gave a couple extra minutes to Brissett to get him to like 24. I think you probably just get, Lamb and Martin playing some minutes, but probably not enough to matter.
Okay. Talk to me about the Celtics then. Jaylen Brown's going to be back in the lineup, which is going to push a lot of these players down, although none of the salaries are absurd. And I look at Marcus Smart and say he's fine. He's okay at that price point. A lot of these guys are I think playable, but I don't know if there's any true priorities. Tatum, even Tatum though, his price point really isn't that bad. It seems like surprisingly all of these guys have been priced for Jaylen Brown returning, which usually takes a couple games to happen. Yeah,
pretty surprising there. Tatum is fine. I have a hard time. The thing that's going to make it difficult getting to Tatum is that not only do you have a bunch of cheap power forward options, you also have Kristaps Porzingis, and then you have Giannis. So it's kind of like wherever you can just go to a bunch of different price ranges at power forward, but Tatum is fine. I do think my favorite guy from Boston is probably Al Horford at 6,600. He's been a solid fantasy producer this year, and he's actually been playing quite a bit lately. I don't anticipate Brown coming back really having a negative impact on him. It's not like he's a particularly high usage guy anyway. He's only at 17.8% for the season, but he rebounds well. He gets assists. He's averaged 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. And if you look at his recent games, he played about 30 minutes against Phoenix in a blowout where he didn't play at the end of the game, played 35 minutes against the Clippers the game before, played 30 against the Lakers in a 15-point game, played 34 against Utah, 31 against Philly. You're getting playing time from him, and this is a spot against the Bucks where it would make sense for him to be on the floor. So not a priority, but I do think that at only about 6% ownership, he is a pretty appealing option.
Deep Purple says, Boucher is straight cheeks, homie. He averages 1.25 fantasy points for his career.
I think he was answering, why does Nick Nurse hate Boucher?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Real life is definitely different than fantasy. If that's what he's answering, then I don't have time to get into that. But no,
yeah, me and Josh had the whole tangent on a strategy show the other day where people were, I think some people think that Chris Boucher and Karis LeVert would be Hall of Famers if they had different coaches.
That's so many people with so many players, though. That just the immediate assumption is because they're good for, like, remember people thought Andre Drummond was elite.
Right.
And I love the guy. I think for fantasy, he's one of the best in the league, but you can't run him out there for 36 minutes a game and expect good things to happen. Can you expect any good things to happen for the Houston Rockets tonight on the road?
No, I don't. I never expect good things to happen for the Rockets. They are huge dogs at Atlanta, but
10.5.
yeah, that's still, I don't see anything here that I would really be looking at in cash games, but there is still upside if they somehow keep this game competitive. One thing to keep an eye on is Houston's starting lineup. It's a 7:30 game, so I don't know if we'll get it in time, but they've been switching out Armani Brooks and Daniel Tice depending on matchups. I am expecting it to be Tice again here against a Collins and Capella front court, but I also expected it to be Tice against Giannis, and they elected to let Giannis score 100 points instead. So I don't really know what they'll do here, but if Armani Brooks comes off the bench, it makes the playing time pretty scary and pretty much takes him out of play for me. If he starts, it's likely he's playing mid 30s and would look reasonable at 4,800. Assuming that Tice starts, Eric Gordon looks like the best option to me at 5,300. He's been playing 32 to 33 minutes. He has about a 25% usage rate, or 24% usage rate rather, without Kevin Porter on the floor. So he would look fine. Wood is always viable, but at center only on DraftKings, it's difficult to get there. I think he's a little bit more favorably priced on FanDuel. I'm pulling that up now to double check. 8,400 with power forward eligibility on FanDuel. Wood looks like the top option there. On DraftKings, I think Eric Gordon's the top guy.
Houston's playing at the fastest pace in the league. They're a bottom 10 defense. Things could get ugly today. The Atlanta Hawks have a 118.75 implied total. That's 6 points higher than the next closest team. So it's a very, very good spot on paper for them. Nobody's pulling an insane amount of ownership, but could this be a spot where you want to get to Trey, John Collins? These guys are all coming around like between 15 and 20%. Capella, Young, and Collins based on our ownership projections.
Yeah, I think they're all really good plays. Houston, like you said, they play fast. They don't defend. If Atlanta does blow them out, one of these guys is probably going to be responsible. So, and none of them are really that expensive. Trey Young at 10.3 is relatively expensive, but he deserves it. 7,200 for Collins looks fantastic. 7,800 for Capella looks good. The one guy I would add in here, though, is Cam Reddish is only 3,300 with guard and forward eligibility. He played 17 and a half minutes last game, but I think sooner than later, you see that start to creep up into the low to mid 20s. There's no real reason that Luau Cabarrot needs to be playing 30 plus minutes, and Reddish can play multiple positions. So it's not that difficult for him to get on the floor and take minutes. It doesn't even have to be from TLC. He can take a couple minutes from Herter. He can take a couple minutes from Williams or Wright. There's a lot of ways for him to get a few minutes. So getting very little ownership, I am interested in Cam Reddish.
Okay. Are you cool with having how many Hawks? It's a 9-game slate, and there's going to be a lot of players that are pretty high owned. Although I'd say ownership's pretty flat outside of the top 2 or 3 players today. Who are your favorite Hawks in order?
Collins, Young, Capella.
Okay.
Young and Capella are pretty close. Like I like the price on Capella more, but he's a center. But I guess I would go Collins, Capella, Young.
Okay. And then Reddish is just a low-owned tournament option.
Yeah. And as far as how many guys, like I'm going to probably cap it at 3, but I'll probably also typically on slates this big, I set a rule where excluding teams where like there's just very obvious value. Like for example, the Hornets the other day, I'll typically set it. So like if I were to get all 3 of Capella, Young, and Collins, I need somebody from Houston also.
Top plays from this game, either side.
Collins, Capella, and
Young. Figured just all Hawks.
Yeah. Christian Wood on FanDuel.
I want to ask you one thing though before we move on, and this is something you and I have discussed a lot over the years. Is this not one of those games where if you're playing a lot from the Hawks, where you might want to run something back with Houston? Doesn't have to be everywhere, but just in the event that this game does stay competitive and the Hawks get all of their minutes, it probably means somebody's doing something for the Rockets.
Yeah, Josh and I talked about it this morning. I don't really care to do that here because I think Houston's pretty efficiently priced to where if they could easily just have a couple of guys keep them in the game. Like say Garrison Matthews plays well. He can play well without being somebody you have to have at 4,500. Christian Wood can certainly play well enough to keep this game competitive without being somebody you have to have as a $9,300 center on DraftKings. Right. Same goes for Jayshawn Tate at 6,100. So if they were a little bit cheaper or the offense was a little bit more concentrated, I could see that. But I think there's just a good chance or a high percentage of the time where Houston is able to keep it close, where, yeah, maybe a couple of guys are playing a little bit better than we expected, but not necessarily carrying the team and doing something you have to have. But like I said, if I were to get all 3 of like the main Atlanta pieces, then I probably want something from Houston just to give myself a chance.
Okay, fair enough. Armani Brooks, another 34 minutes.
I don't think so. So if he starts, yes. I don't think he's going to start. Eric Gordon is back today too, so I'm not expecting him to get as many minutes off the bench. The last time that Tice started and Gordon was in, Brooks played about 22 minutes off the bench.
Yeah, Brooks played 34 off the bench, but like you said, no Gordon last game. So makes sense. All right. Philly, Memphis. Philly favorites on the road. 4 points coming off that win against Golden State. Shocked the shit out of me. 209.5 total. I guess we have to start with Joel Embiid. Look, Joel Embiid, let's be frank here, is not shooting all that efficiently this season. He's had some struggles, but he just can he can salvage everything with the 18 free throw attempts per game. He's been better lately, no doubt, but a handful of games where in tough matchups he's really struggled. How do you view this matchup for Embiid today against this Memphis frontcourt?
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be just a shit show because Steven Adams he went from doubtful to questionable. I'm not saying that I think Adams, stops Embiid or anything like that, but if this ends up being
still a good defender.
Yeah. But if this ends up being, Xavier Tillman and company against Embiid, then look out. But I think it's just a good play here. He's getting 9% ownership. He's 11K. So he gives you a discount off of Giannis. He gives you a discount off of Jokic. He doesn't produce at the same rate as those guys, but he still gives you 70 fantasy point upside, which is pretty nice. So, yeah, I think, good tournament play on Embiid. Him and Harris are really all that I see from the Philadelphia side.
You know what worries me with Adams and a guy like Marc Gasol, the reason Adams doesn't foul.
Right.
And if you're someone that can prevent fouling against Embiid, you're just going to get him frustrated and start taking bad shots. It happens all the time. If he can get you in the foul trouble, you're done. You're cooked. But you already have Brandon Clark's out. Jaren Jackson Jr. is questionable. Yeah, if Adams doesn't play, I guess we do have to. Well, we'll get to that in a second once we get to Memphis. But I'll ask if there's anything else from Philly. I'm assuming Philly outside of some Embiid shares in tournaments is pretty much a wash, unless there's something you really want to get to at no ownership at all.
No, that's pretty much it. Harris is the other one at 7,700. He's fine, but also he's $300 less than Porzingis, who we'll talk about against the Hornets without Luka Doncic.
So if Steven Adams, who has been upgraded to questionable, as you mentioned, is out, and we know that Clark is out, if Jaren Jackson also sits because he's been out, how many minutes do we get for Tillman? Don't even factor in foul trouble here because that's an issue in its own right. But,
yeah, I mean, I would probably go like 26 or so minutes on Tillman. I assume they'll still throw Tilly out there. They'll throw Aldama out there. My expectation is that they would try, and we've seen teams do it before when they don't have an actual matchup for Embiid, is they just throw a bunch of different guys at him and they just kind of they try and keep guys fresh and just throw fresh defenders at him constantly and slow him down that way. That would kind of be my expectation here. Like I think Tillman would get the bulk of the minutes in the 26-minute range, but I think you'd get Tilly out there. You would get Aldama. You would just get pretty much any healthy big that they can possibly throw at him.
So he's basically a fantasy point per minute guy this season. You think you'd get to a decent amount if all those guys sit?
Yeah, he's about 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. If I give him 26 or even 24 minutes, he projects really, really well. The only thing working against him is that he's center only, but yeah, he would look like a really good value.
What about the rest of this? This is in flux right now. This is why you watch Live Before Lock with Josh and Greg coming up after us. Maybe we'll get some news on this. It's an 8 p.m. tip-off Eastern time, so it's hard to say. Right now, none of these guys are really getting any ownership because Jaren Jackson's projected in. Steven Adams is projected in. And with that being the case, you don't really know. But things could change real quick if these guys end up being sidelined.
Yeah, definitely. This, like you said, there's a lot of moving parts because Bane's questionable and Jackson's questionable. That's two of the highest usage guys on this team. Without Morant this year, Jackson has a 30% usage rate. Bane has a 24.7% usage rate. If you take one or both of them out, Dillon Brooks and his 31% usage rate, it's going to test exactly how high someone's usage rate can get in a game, because Dillon Brooks is just going to be chucking this entire game because there's nobody really to replace that usage. Kyle Anderson's not a high usage guy. He would get more minutes. Like if Bane is out or Jackson's out, I expect Anderson to start and be a reasonable value, but he's just not someone that's going to go out there and chuck up a million shots. You're just going to get more of Dillon Brooks, probably. DeAnthony Melton, is a high usage guy as well. That would get some more minutes off the bench. But if all those guys are in, I think Jackson is interesting at 7,300. He's I think like 6'8", He's cheap on FanDuel. I don't remember the exact price.
Who, Jaren?
Yeah.
Jaren Jackson, 6,400.
Okay. Yeah, so he's the same price as Hero. I knew there were a couple at 6,400 today. It's a situation where, like, even if he gets in foul trouble and plays 28 minutes, he's likely to be fine at that salary because he's averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute without Morant. But if he avoids foul trouble, he's likely to play 32 to 34 minutes and look really, really good. Also, you have the potential of Steven Adams being out and Jaren Jackson getting more minutes at the 5, which are valuable minutes. They also come with more foul risk, especially in this matchup. But I would like Jackson in tournaments if he's in. If Jackson is out, then I think Anderson looks fine and Bane and Brooks look better. If Bane is out, Brooks looks better. Anderson looks fine. But yeah, a lot of moving parts here.
You know damn well Jenkins will still find a way to play 11 guys, even if all of them are out.
Yeah, that's one thing. I wouldn't go crazy on minutes with a lot of guys. I mean, we got 30 minutes last game from Anderson with Jackson out. But yeah, it's the per minute production. But yeah, I fully expect that you're getting Jarrett Culver. If guys are out, that you're getting Culver in the rotation, that you're getting Aldama back in the rotation. Jenkins is the complete opposite of Nick Nurse when it comes to running rotations.
146 likes away from 500. I think we can get there. Toss it off to Live Before a Log. Give them something good to chew on. Talking about likes, of course, and subscribe to the channel too if you haven't done so. Help us get to 70K. If you like this stuff, if you don't, that's cool, but it only takes a second. And I'm assuming most of you just forgot. If you want to close out of that chat in the YouTube app on the phone and click it, click back in, whatever you want to do, it helps us out. So thank you. Awesemo. Actually, anything else for Memphis?
No, just to remind, somebody said Armani Brooks came off the bench last game and crushed. He did. Eric Gordon was out.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that. So I don't know. I feel like Brooks gets mid-20s minutes, you think? If Gordon's in low 20s in minutes?
If Tice starts, I think it's mid-20s. If Brooks starts, then I would go mid-30s because that means Tice isn't going to play.
All right. Island Boys. Did you see that I'm an Island Boy video?
Yes, I have. And it gets stuck in my head every time and I hate it.
They reminded me of you in a way.
Oh, yeah? I can see it.
They're talented, right?
Yeah, they are great.
I went and looked at one of their videos. It truly awful. Like at least Tekashi 6ix9ine was catchy. These guys are just terrible.
Oh, for sure. Like, yeah, I could actually listen to that. No minutes limit off the bench for Cam Reddish.
For Reddish? Okay. Yeah. Make you like him a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of thing where there's no guarantee he plays a lot of minutes, but at least we know that they're phrasing it like he could see some more run.
All right. Yeah, Ryan, it is. It's the worst thing on the internet, but that's what people do, man. That's someone said, what's really under that hat, Adam? Yeah, that's how you make money these days. It's sad. I might try it. I don't know if this whole hosting thing doesn't work out. Awesemo Hall of Fame. Let's shout out to all the winners getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. We've had some big ones the past couple Sundays specifically, but we've had a bunch of sports mix in there. If you want to know what this is, I'm going to tell you. It's very simple. You want to get inducted into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, get the shout out here. And of course, get your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/avatar. Download the avatar. Use it on Yahoo, DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and tweet us your win at Awesemo HOF. Include Adam and myself in the tweet as well so we can see it. Shout you out. Give you some of that Twitter love and get your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Tyler, let's kick this off. See if I can read these this time. Miss Eunuch. Interesting. Okay. Easy. I'm assuming. Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay. Easy money. 706, 13,800. Huge win. Repping Team Awesome. It's just longest fourth quarter of football in my life. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, so I'll get through it. But did you see that last interception knocked like 4 or 5 people out of a tie for 71K each?
No, I was watching Dexter, but
yeah, it was bad.
So I think I think Wiley on Twitter was one of them because
I was watching it. I was watching. I saw
he was bitching a lot about not winning. I suggested that maybe next time he play Aaron Jones instead of Justin Fields.
It's such a simple fix.
Yeah, that I don't really understand why he would do what he did, but
yeah, we all make our bed and have to lay in it. Jason Stone, first place takedown. Don't know how to show my Awesemo avatar except like this. It's not Photoshop, at least. You can see it on other devices. This takedown qualifies me for the free month, right? Yeah, I believe it does, sir. $6,000. Good stuff, brother. Good to see it. And who do we got? Duty? That's solid. 125 mini max 100. Okay, good stuff. Early. It was a weird one. Yo, let's get it, boys. Seth Curtis, 10,000. Okay, big win there in the showdown. Congrats, dude. Dave DeRemer up here again, $3,000 in the UFC tournament. Nunes fight. Yeah, it was crazy. Would have been a lot more, but I'd take third and about 8 times my money on the night. Thanks, Team Awesemo, as usual, for the amazing shows and analysis. You guys are truly second to none. Shout out to Pete the Heat MMA and Jason Floyd as well. Those guys put on some great shows around here for UFC. And B. Kegel, 97, hit this fun little parlay today. Everything else it hit. And then the Bucks 49ers games went to OT and made this for a dramatic finish. Check this out, Adam. $3 parlay, 11 leg into 1,600. How's that for one?
Wait, what?
$3 parlay into $1,600.
Yeah, I saw that this morning when I woke up. Yeah, that's crazy.
That'll do it. Yeah, and he had 2 games that went into overtime. Congrats to all of you. Hit us up at Awesemo Hall of Fame, Awesemo HOF. Download the avatar, get your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, and get the shout out. Get inducted into this shit. All right, Charlotte and Dallas. We're still without a lot of players for Charlotte, Adam, that still haven't come back. So LaMelo, Plumlee, Ish Smith, Jalen McDaniels, but PJ Washington is expected to play. Now that we've gotten mostly accurate pricing, at least in most spots for Charlotte, how are you approaching them today?
Yeah, much less appealing team to get to now that they're getting guys back and they are more expensive at the same time. I'm still expecting a lot of minutes for guys like Oubre and Bridges and Hayward, but the problem is that they are priced for, at this point, 41 minutes or so like they've been playing, and they're likely to get you 36 to 38. So there's still some tournament appeal there because there's going to be plenty of opportunities. The highest owned guy on this team on DraftKings is Bridges at 8%, but there's just nothing that really stands out here, especially assuming that Washington plays and that, Rozier is back. It would obviously look much different if one or both of those guys were out, but Rozier not on the injury report and Washington listed as probable. There's no real reason right now, at least, to think that anything weird is going to happen there.
Fred says the rich get richer, win a lot of money and get a free month. It's like me chipping in and buying money from my rich boss. No, do you know how many people we have that enter with with a nickel contest and win $70 and get the free month? That's not true at all. And these guys aren't getting a free month every single time if they're up there a lot. So no, not true. You could enter for a quarter or a nickel and you still get it. And those are tougher to win because there's hundreds of thousands of entries. So we definitely would want to reward something like that. So Dallas is the big thing. I don't even know how much time we need to spend on Dallas, but we will, because there's some pretty obvious points here. Adam Brunson without Doncic is 1.09 DraftKings points per minute in 5 starts this year, 27% usage, 40% assist rate, and he's averaging 38 DraftKings points per game in those starts. What else do I need to say?
Yeah, there's nothing really else to say there. The only potential negative I could point to for Brunson is he only played 30 and a half minutes yesterday. He lost about 2.5 minutes to garbage time. So we're looking at around 33 minutes, but that's about it. I mean, there's the potential for him to play 36 plus. They didn't do that yesterday, but like you said, he's over a fantasy point per minute without Luka. Even if you put Porzingis on the floor this year and take Luka off, Brunson's over a fantasy point per minute. The usage rate just goes down a little bit, but the assist percentage goes up. It's a phenomenal matchup. Charlotte's one of the fastest teams in the league. They do not defend. They're up there with the Rockets and the Kings as some of the teams that you can kind of just blindly take players against. So Brunson looks fantastic. He should be getting a ton of ownership. I think it's well-deserved. He's projected for 52% ownership on DraftKings right now. That's obviously a very high number on a 9-game slate, but at the same time, we have him with a 52.5% chance of being in the optimal lineup, 66% boom percentage at 5,800 on DraftKings. So kind of like we talked about with Boucher, he's popular, but also for a very good reason.
Kristaps Porzingis as well is an interesting one. I actually only took his stats from this year without Doncic, Adam, and you may have done differently, so happy to listen. But this year without Doncic, not a ton of time, but 1.35 DraftKings points per minute and really solid rates across the board. The reason I did that is because Porzingis just looks like a different player and finally healthy this year. I don't feel like we had seen that last year, and he was just so phased out of the offense at many points, even when Doncic was out. But what do you have for me on Porzingis today?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. 239 total minutes this year without Luka on the floor, 1.31 DraftKings points per minute. He's played 4 total games without Luka, 1.35 DraftKings points per minute. He's averaged 31 minutes per game, a 29% usage rate, 15% rebounding percentage, 22% assist percentage. He struggled yesterday, but he looks fantastic here, likely to give you 30 to 32 minutes in a great spot. So I kind of alluded to him a couple of times earlier in the show. There's some power forward value to pay down for, but then Porzingis is kind of just like a tier of his own also in the mid range where he could very easily just, give you an easy 50 fantasy points at 8K.
Yeah, he's dropped 48, 49, 42, and then yesterday 28. Pretty decent numbers. He's played 30, 32, 30, and 32. So you'd like to see him play a little bit more minutes, but if you get 32 out of him in a close game, which it should be, I'm all right with that. I like Dallas to win this game as well, for what it's worth. Anything else you want to hit on for Dallas with huge news and Luka being out? Well, obviously for the second game.
Yeah, so I think Porzingis and Brunson are the main pieces. If you wanted to try and get some lower owned guys in a phenomenal spot against Charlotte, I think Finney-Smith and Hardaway are the next two up. Tim Hardaway Jr. has about a 25% usage rate without Luka on the floor this year. He's at 1.05 DraftKings points per minute. He played about 23 minutes off the bench yesterday, but if he's playing well, you could certainly see more minutes. And kind of like we talked about when Sacramento played Charlotte the other day, and you had Buddy Hield coming off of a few games where he played poorly and didn't play a lot of minutes. Charlotte is pretty good at making someone play well. And if Hardaway plays well, you could definitely get him approaching 30 minutes here. So I do like him in tournaments at very little ownership. Finney-Smith at 4,600 is fine as well.
All right. And hey, if you aren't a sub yet and you just want to check some stuff out today for free in front of the paywall, not usually, but the NBA player rankings, NHL player rankings, and the NFL single game rankings, all of which are free today at Awesemo.com. If you want to get in behind the paywall, check out everything we have for every sport, all of our tools. Use the promo code NFL Live, all one word, all caps. NFL Live gets you 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus. Just look at the testimonials rolling in chat right now. These aren't bots. These are real people. So take it from them, not from me. I'm just some random guy. Thanks for getting us to 500 likes as well. Appreciate you guys. It means a lot. Washington and Denver. Let's close it out with these last two games before we flip the page to the deeper dive. Adam, Washington 3.5-point dogs again in Denver, 215.5 total. Anything stand out to you from the Wizard side?
Pretty tough spot for them, but Kuzma is out. So there is potentially more usage for guys like Dinwiddie and Bradley Beal. Dinwiddie's also just really cheap on DraftKings at 5,200. Washington had said a couple of weeks ago that they were going to start playing Dinwiddie more minutes. Hasn't really materialized yet, but something that certainly could happen soon. So Beal at 8,400, Dinwiddie at 5,200 are fine. Wouldn't prioritize either one, but they look okay. Same can be said for KCP at 3,900, Avdia at 3,500. Really the same can be said for the centers too. So this is just a team where I don't expect to get a lot of exposure, but mixing in a piece here or there at low ownership is fine.
How about Denver, Nikola Jokic? I mean, what else is there to say about this fella?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous what he's doing this year. Putting up massive fantasy games recently, 2 70-point games in his last 3. It's not a bad Washington defense, but still just, it doesn't really matter. Jokic is great. The only issue is that, you are paying, he's the most expensive guy on the slate. You are paying all the way up, but he also deserves that. He's the best per minute fantasy guy in the league. So he looks great here. I don't think he should be that difficult to get to. I did mention earlier that the ownership gap between him and Giannis is kind of appealing, but Jokic still just projects better, I think.
He's so good that even with Jamal Murray out, even with Michael Porter out, there's still just rarely any good value for Denver. There's rarely any good play. It's just always Jokic and then nothing else.
Yeah, there is the potential for there to be more value here. Will Barton and Aaron Gordon are both questionable. So if one of those guys or both were to sit, for one, you probably just get more from Jokic, but if that's possible. But also it would open up more playing time. Last game with Barton out, Gordon was in. Devon Reed got the spot start. He only played about 17 minutes, but you got 29 minutes from Campazzo off the bench. You got Bones Highland playing 23 minutes. Marcus Howard played about 20 minutes outside of garbage time. All of those guys are reasonably good fantasy producers. Highland, the best of the group at 3,600. If Campazzo is going to play close to 30 minutes at 3,800, he would still look good though. So definitely something, probably won't have that news by lock, but definitely something to keep an eye on and potentially be late swapping to some, Bones Highland or Campazzo value.
Benjamin, thanks for the super chat. To a couple of OGs. Cheers, fellas. Thanks, man. Yeah, pay attention to that Denver news for sure. 9:00 game. It's an island game, only game at 9. And then there's an island 10:30 game, Adam. I don't think this is going to cause us any trouble unless DeAndre Ayton ends up not playing for this one, but you'll know what to do in the event that you get that news. Paul George, I'll have you hit this on both sides here so we can get to the live before live. Paul George is doubtful for this one as well. Nick Batum is questionable after making a 1-game return after being out for 3+ weeks. What do you got?
So from the Phoenix side, if Ayton is in, it's just a bunch of secondary pieces that look okay, but don't look great. Paul, Ayton, Payne, Bridges, Crowder, those guys are all perfectly fine. I think Paul and Ayton would be the two I get to first. What really matters is if Ayton sits, get as much JaVale McGee into your lineups as you can at that point. He's 4K on DraftKings. Even if you just project him to be the backup center and play 15 or 16 minutes, he projects for like 5 times his salary. If he starts, I mean, Kaminsky is out. He played 26 minutes last game. He's one of the best per minute guys in the NBA and would be playing more minutes. So with this being an island game at the end of the night, I think it's pretty tough or pretty risky, I should say, to project Ayton out, especially because it was just a non-COVID illness. So it's not like he's dealing with an injury or anything. But as soon as you get the news that Ayton is sitting, if that news comes, do everything you can to get as much JaVale McGee as possible. On the other side, for the Clippers, and it is kind of nice that we have some value here because potentially you could just swap, Terrence Mann to JaVale McGee, for example. Another reason why you would be playing these guys in flex as opposed to guard spots where possible. But with George out, you're likely to get another start from Mann at 4,400. He should play a lot of minutes. Reggie Jackson has a 31% usage rate without George on the floor this year. He's likely to give you mid-30s in minutes. So those two look good. Brandon Boston played 24 minutes off the bench last game. He's 3K flat. If Nick Batum is out, I think he looks like a good value. If Batum is in, then you're kind of stuck with, hoping that you get like 18 minutes from Boston. But Marcus Morris, Zubats, those guys are fine as well. I would say that the priorities here are Jackson, Mann, Boston if Batum is out from a value standpoint. And then on the other side of this game, McGee if Ayton is out.
It's an island game. All right, stick around. Live before live coming up next. Thanks to all you guys for hanging out. Hit that thumbs up while you wait. Subscribe to the channel. Hit up Adam at Ship My Money DFS. Myself at Laffy_D. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Good luck tonight. Peace.
There we go. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Monday, December 13th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are brought to you by Yahoo. We've got a 9-gamer on our hands. 5 of those games locking by 7:30. So it's possible we just get inundated with news maybe in the last half of this show. We shall see. Before we do anything, 2,500 people in here right now, 563 likes. Boop. Let's run that number up. Hit that like button. I don't know, 700 or something seems like it's pretty reasonable. Go ahead and hit that like button. It helps us out a ton, and my ego needs it. Not that I have a huge one to begin with. Also, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Greg, how are you?
I disagree with some of your statements there, but yeah, I do think this is a pretty interesting slate for this main reason. There's a very key piece of news in the last game of the slate. That is DeAndre Ayton is questionable. If he is out, JaVale McGee instantly becomes a tremendous value play. Here's the issue, though. He's likely going to be a game time decision. That game starts an hour and a half later than any other game on the slate. So it does set up some pretty interesting decisions when we set our lineups.
Yeah, right now on FanDuel, I know it's a little bit different. JaVale's price on DraftKings is pretty low, right? Like 4K or something off the top of my head.
Yes, 4K.
I'm actually getting to a bit of Zubats at 5,700, which is going to afford me the ability to just like turn him immediately into JaVale if I have to. So I'm excited about that. But JaVale is 5,200 on FanDuel, not nearly as interesting. I mentioned this on the strategy show earlier today. Over the past 30 days, JaVale McGee has the 3rd best fantasy point per minute rate in the league of anybody playing like any sort of legitimate amount of minutes, behind Giannis and Jokic.
Expected. I mean, yeah. we're looking at a true generational star. And I believe this. If you put JaVale McGee in like the 1950s, the 1960s, people be talking about him the same way they talk about Will Chamberlain.
I mean, he would just be like an athletic marvel. It would be good. It would be good. All right. So normally you and I start this show and like all hell is already broken loose. It's been multiple weeks in a row. Today, we don't really have that. Everything is sort of tame right now. I'd say the biggest piece of news that we could get while we're on this show, probably something in that Memphis game, whether it's getting confirmed that Steven Adams is in or out, Jaren Jackson, Dylan Brooks. That's like, we got a lot of balls in the air here. I don't really think we have much that we can talk about with regards to that game because it's 3 legitimate pieces. So maybe we could actually follow the plan of this show. Let's talk some guards for today.
We'll give it a go.
We can be a little bit wider with what we're trying to do. Oh, by the way, I did see one thing that I wanted to mention. Oh, it just came in now. Eric Gordon, no minutes limit for tonight. Do with that what you will.
I'd recommend not doing much with that information.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not very good on a per minute basis, that's for sure. So let's talk about the probably number 1 guard play of the day today. That would be Jalen Brunson. Whether we're talking about FanDuel or DraftKings, not really going to matter all that much. I think he looks fantastic. Do you have any particular thoughts about Jalen Brunson?
Not really. I'm overweight to the field on him on FanDuel and DraftKings and the builds I have right now. I get that he's been priced up a little bit from where he was priced early in the year when he was starting, and also that he's more popular. But look at his numbers overall for the year. He has now made 7 starts. In those starts, playing 34.5 minutes per game, averaging over 40 DraftKings points. He should be like $2,000-$3,000 more expensive. So with that considered, I think he's a really strong play. Absolutely have to play him in cash games. Even the 50-ish% ownership on ZK and FanDuel, not an issue for me.
I agree. He looks fantastic. Grades out as the best play of the day. Should be in every cash lineup that you're making. I don't really have too much else to add here. Some of the other guys that are pulling pretty sizable ownership from a guard perspective, I'm going to hit it from the FanDuel end of this. Gary Trent is close to 30%. That's a guy that's playing massive minutes because that's what Toronto does. Tyler Hero getting a lot of love on FanDuel at 6,400. Again, no Jimmy Butler, no Bam Adebayo. That's just natural. Those are guys that are over 20. The only other guy over 20% ownership on FanDuel as of this moment, Reggie Jackson, looking also pretty good because there's no Paul George. So it's a lot of guys in this mid-tier that are getting minutes and rates and everything freed up by a bigger star or two bigger stars being out. If you have any thoughts on Trent or Hero or Jackson, go for it. If you've got other guys that you've got your eye on that are pulling some ownership, go for that as well.
We could talk about Hero, who I think he's kind of difficult to project minutes for. Just from the standpoint of when we saw all these guys getting ruled out for the Heat, it just made sense to me. Like, okay, we're going to see
camera.
Yes. And it just caught me off guard because all of a sudden I see you with your mustache out of the corner of my eye, and I was not expecting it at all. So anyway, the Tyler Hero situation.
Yeah.
So I mean, you just kind of assume that when Jimmy Butler gets ruled out and Bam Adebayo, while that doesn't directly impact the minutes of Tyler Hero, you would just think, okay, they need the extra scoring on offense. They play in big minutes. They've had all these guys out and even Caleb Martin now, but the last 3 games, they brought him off the bench. He played 28 minutes, and 33 minutes. He's also not playing extremely well in those minutes. So I think there's a really wide range of outcomes for Tyler Hero. There's been a bunch of slates where I'm overweight to him. This isn't going to be one of them, though.
Okay. I can say right now that he is 25% owned on FanDuel. I have 12%. I have a sneaky suspicion that camera thing is going to shut off on more than one occasion. So chat seems to be really enjoying the mustache. It appears that that's going to pop up again and again and again. It's incredible to me how long ago that was now. Time is moving at a very rapid rate.
Very Paul Blart Mall Cop-ish.
That's not a compliment.
It wasn't meant as one.
Oddly enough, Kevin James is in Wilmington at this moment. So maybe I can see if he's ever going to do a third one, if he needs like some understudy, something along those lines.
Or you could sneak in and pretend you're him with that mustache.
Yeah, I mean, he is significantly more fit now. Back in the day, I don't think that I could have pulled off the Paul Blart, but now he's probably in better shape than I am.
I believe he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
I'm pretty sure that he's got like actual like martial arts skills.
No, he does. He does.
I know Rogan's talked about it before that he's like definitely trains. I don't remember if it was jiu-jitsu or taekwondo or anything like that, but he definitely does something, and obviously made like an MMA movie too.
Yeah, I think he's 10th planet black belt.
Makes sense. Let's go to some of the guys. All right, let's do it this way. Do you see anybody else that's pulling any sizable ownership that you aren't getting to? Guys that you are sort of fading?
Let's see. Sizable ownership. I mean, the ownership's so spread out today. It's not like there's that many guys that are crazy popular. On DK, the players that are over 25% owned as your camera goes off again, it's Reggie Jackson, Kristaps Porzingis, Chris Boucher, and Jalen Brunson. Over on FanDuel, it's Gary Trent, Pascal Siakam, Chris Boucher, Kyle Lowry, and Jalen Brunson. So it's not like there's that much chalk to really be worried about today. One of the reasons I don't like Tyler Hero relative to his ownership is actually not even because the number's ridiculously high. I just don't know how to project his minutes, and he hasn't played particularly well as of late.
That works for me. Looking at some of the guys on the FanDuel side, I'm lighter on my boy Karis LeVert now that the price is up to 6K. We've got Marcus Smart in 20% of lineups. That's not a number that I'm getting to so far today. And then Kyle Lowry is the other big one. 35% owned on FanDuel at 6,900. I understand the ownership. It just feels a little aggressive on a day like today. I just see so many other guys that are pulling like no ownership or low ownership that I think that I can just spread that out a little bit more. We'll see how well that works out, but
no, it's the same for me. Also, I really respect Cleveland's defense. I think Cleveland, especially with Evan Mobley, here's how good Evan Mobley is on defense. Off the top of my head, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Cleveland was bottom 5 in league in defensive efficiency last year. They're around top 5 this year. It's basically the same team. They've just added Evan Mobley to the mix. So I look at Kyle Lowry at 6,900 on FanDuel in this matchup. It's going to be different talking about him on DK, where he is 8,000, totally different in those salary ranges. But 6,900 on FanDuel, I have him looking fairly well on a points per dollar basis, but still I run my lineups and I just come out less than the field.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. You explained it perfectly for me. It's not like he doesn't grade out on a point per dollar basis well, but I think there are a lot of options in that high 6 to low 7 range, even just at different positions. Like Tobias Harris, for example, Obviously, these guys are playing at different positions. He's $400 more expensive than Kyle Lowry. I don't have them separated by all that much from a projection standpoint. And I think that Tobias Harris, like Lowry's tripling him, the 35% to 11% in ownership. I just don't think that Kyle Lowry is beating Tobias Harris that frequently. That's just one example in that sort of range where I think it becomes pretty easy to sort of do something slightly different. Not that I don't like him, but sometimes you got to take some stands. Still no more news. This is what is going on? It's 6:15. We should have had 27 different things to happen so far. I'll turn my camera back on now, I guess.
Yeah. So the one for me that I actually like the most as a pivot on DK is Bradley Beal from Kyle Lowry. If you're looking for somebody in the guard spot, Kyle Lowry has about let's see, so 10% ownership for Kyle Lowry, for 15% for Kyle Lowry compared to 10% for Bradley Beal. And we've got Kyle Kuzma out for the Wizards right now. There's extra usage to go around. And I know that Bradley Beal has disappointed this year from a fantasy perspective relative to expectations. I assumed he was going to lead the league in scoring this year once they got rid of Russell Westbrook. It's crazy to me that we've seen a decrease in usage for Beal this year compared to last year without Russell Westbrook. But now we're taking Kuzma out of the picture, and that's extra shots to go around. And I think Beal is getting slept on a little bit, and he's priced down.
Yeah, I'm getting to him a bit on FanDuel as well at 8,300. The public is too, evidently, around 13% owned, but I have 17% right now. We'll see where that actually ends up as we get a little bit closer to lock. Any guards you're getting to that aren't pulling a lot of ownership? Who are your sort of stands, your flyers for today?
Let's see. So guards, he's picking up some ownership, but I'm overweight to the field on Spencer Dinwiddie for a lot of the same reasons that I'm overweight to the field on Bradley Beal. One that I'm not really understanding, Gabe Vincent's only projected for 7.9% ownership right now on DK. I assume he's going to start. He started last game for them, and they've seemed really hesitant to start Tyler Hero in games as of late. And he's cheap. I think he's going to start and play a lot of minutes. So I think that there's with Gabe Vincent, and it's not as if he's the best points per minute fantasy producer in the world, but last game was a blowout and he played over 30 minutes. He scored 8 points. He still finished with over 30 DraftKings points. I don't really understand why his ownership is so low. He's one of my favorite value plays on the slate.
Yeah, 4,200 looks like a really nice price. The ownership is a little weird to me. I'm not really getting to him. He's 4,700 on FanDuel. I think that $600 or $500 really does matter in this case. But I mean, for a guy that could potentially play 34 minutes in a perfect scenario, 32, probably the most likely scenario, 30 if you want to be really safe. All those numbers look pretty fine from a point per dollar perspective on a $4,200 guy.
Yeah. So just asking you, just answer your question about guys that are being slept on. I'm way overweight to the field on Gabe Vincent. That's one that's kind of curious to me. Here's one that I could potentially end up getting a lot of exposure to is Armani Brooks. I just don't know what that Rockets starting lineup is going to look like. Brooks is playing so well for them, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, this is going too well. We got to move this guy to a reserve role. So he comes off the bench last game. He still plays 34 minutes, but the game was also a blowout at a point in time. It only finished with a 7-point score. But part of that was because Memphis got down. Memphis was up so much against Houston. Houston just took out all their starters. Armani Brooks played a lot in the second half and did really well in those minutes. He's not projected for that much ownership right now. If he starts, which I think is a possibility, I'll like him a whole bunch at that ownership. If he ends up coming off the bench again, then I'll be a little bit more reserved. But I think there's a good chance Brooks starts again.
Guy that I'm most interested in that's pulling low ownership with any guard eligibility on FanDuel is Cody Martin. He's 5,200 still. He might get his minutes cut now that Rozier is back. He might not. This is a Charlotte team that plays a very tight rotation just in general. So depending on where you've got him projected, I got him at 28.5 fantasy points. I don't think that's anything too outlandish on a day like today. We got him at 4% ownership. I'll just take my chances that he falls into, 36 minutes again. He might not. He might. If he plays 30, I'm still not mad for having him. He's not the best fantasy performer in the world, but at 4% on a day like today, I'm willing to still go there if everybody's getting away from the Charlotte team.
Yeah, no, I could definitely get behind that. And Charlotte still has a billion guys out. They're one of the 15 teams in the league that are currently dealing with COVID protocols. And one more player that I want to shout out here for low ownership, Bones Highland. We've got Aaron Gordon is listed as questionable. Will Barton is listed as questionable. It remains to be seen what happens with the injury status of these guys, and this is a later start time. But particularly if Will Barton is ruled out, that's a lot of extra minutes I would expect to go to Bones Highland. He's shown that he could be crazy efficient on a points per minute basis for fantasy. So I think the upside is really high for Bones Highland, and he's also somebody the field isn't on. We've seen games where he scores over 30 fantasy points in 20 minutes.
Up to 678 likes. That's looking like a pretty good number, but what looks better? Every single number above 678. So hit that like button once again. We've got NFL Live Before Lock coming up immediately after this show. Well, not immediately, but like close to immediately. 7:15 Eastern. You can take a 15-minute bathroom break, grab a snack. I'll turn my camera back on, and then you guys can go ahead and watch NFL Live Before Lock. We've also got free NBA rankings on the website today, so go to awesemo.com for those. NFL single game rankings are free, along with our NHL player rankings. So lots of good stuff on the site today, including one additional show. Lots going on. Jaron Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, and Desmond Bain are all game time decisions. Thank you for no news whatsoever.
It's the dumbest thing, game time decisions. I
don't know why anybody mentions it.
It's not even like people will say too, like, oh, this guy's a game time decision. It means nothing. If you look at the official NBA injury report, it's not like guys are listed as game time decisions. They're questionable, probable, or doubtful. It's not an injury designation.
No, but nothing has changed. They're like, yeah, we'll tell you before we start, which super helpful. All right, let's switch it over to the forward line now. And just looking at some of the higher owned guys on FanDuel, we've got 5K Chris Boucher, slightly better price on DraftKings too. Pascal Siakam is in the 30s in ownership. Gary Trent, as I mentioned, for the guards, but still transitions to forward, as does LeVert and Tyler Hero. John Collins, 25% owned on FanDuel. Kristaps Porzingis, 20% owned on FanDuel. I know that there's going to be a couple other options on DraftKings given where the value is. So how are you feeling about the chalkier options for today?
Yeah, so let's see. Where should we start with? I guess I'll start with Porzingis because he is the one that I think has the most upside of those chalky plays. There's no Luka Doncic in the mix, and we've seen for Porzingis at times his ceiling is massive this year. There are some games where he looks like he's an all-star caliber player, and other games where he looks like he sucks. But I'm going to be on him in this spot, and over on your camera turned off again. Over on FanDuel at 22% owned, I still think that's too low for an 8,500 price tag. Same goes for DK, 27%. It's numbers I'm overweight to the field on. I like paying up for Porzingis quite a bit, and there's enough value on the slate where I don't think the price tag's problematic.
I really want to try fixing this camera issue right now, but if I unplug it, I don't think it comes back. And then it's, well, not that anybody's going to be really mad about having it just be my stupid mustache picture, but I don't like it. Maybe we can cut my mouth out and then we can do it like it's a cartoon or something, or we could use Tyler's mouth as my mouth, if something.
Yeah, or we just cut your mouth out so the audience doesn't have to listen to you talk. That's something they would also appreciate, some of them.
That's probably true. I mean, it's just going to keep shutting off every 5 minutes. So get it, buckle up for it, people, because for the next 37 minutes, every once in a while, you're just going to get my stupid mustache face popping up in front of everything.
Might as well leave it at this point.
Did it just? Oh my God! It just did it again.
Yeah, it took like 5 seconds.
I'll never understand why it happens. It just does not make any sense to me.
And only with me.
Yeah, never. I don't think it's ever happened on a strategy show.
Oh, it must
be
something
on Live
I'm
Before Luck constantly. Yeah, maybe it's your fault. I never even thought about the fact that it could just be outside forces.
Yeah, I'm trying to sabotage you to get more screen time.
Look, man, if you would like me to sign off, I'd be happy to. It's a 9-game slate. If this were a 3-gamer, I want to stay here and try to talk. It's a 9-game slate. I'd rather just have this 35 minutes for myself.
Yeah, hey, I understand it, but I need somebody to talk while I upload lineup, so I'm not kicking you off.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's talk then a little bit about the opposite side of this coin. Do you see anybody that's pulling some ownership that you're not all that fond of?
I don't really understand the John Collins one, and maybe this from a standpoint of I never project John Collins super highly. I can't remember there being that many slates where I was like, this is a John Collins slate for me, other than the time that we've seen in the past, Clint Capella and or Trae Young being out. When they just have a team that's mostly healthy, I just don't really see it in John Collins, and there's been a bunch of slates this year where he has popped up as being pretty popular, and I honestly don't think I had more than 10% of John Collins on a single slate all season. So that's what I'm a little miffed by.
I don't have much either. He's 25 on FanDuel. I have 7 at this moment. So we are in lockstep on that one as well. Anybody else you're seeing that you're pretty significantly underweight on? I mean, I'm light on Harrison Barnes on FanDuel, but he's 5,800 there. That's a little bit different than he is on DraftKings. I'm light on Bagley, who's 4,300 on FanDuel. I don't know what to do with him. His minutes could be just about anything today, and I would believe it. So I am kind of light on the forwards outside of 5K Chris Boucher. His ownership isn't all that important to me. He's just a great play so long as he starts.
Yeah, and by the way, on the Kings thing, because we could talk about that now here too. I'm assuming Chris Boucher starts, and I'm going to take him. He's one of my favorite value plays on the slate, but I have no interest in him if he comes off the bench. But I assume he starts. I don't know what the Kings are going to do with their starting lineup. Terrence Davis was one of their best players for a couple of weeks there, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, let's go with Marvin Bagley and just not play Terrence Davis." Yeah, Terrence Davis could start again, and that would obviously have to change how I view the Kings rotation. But as of now, I really do like Bagley just because I'm assuming that he's going to start and play significant minutes.
Revenge narrative for Davis?
Boy, I could really dive deep into this one, but no, I don't. But here's last game he plays 18 minutes, scores 12 fantasy points. If he starts, great play. If he comes off the bench, his minutes are probably going to be limited for no reason whatsoever.
Hit that rotation when I looked. It's like I don't pay too close attention to. Let me turn that back on. I don't. Well,
that was quick.
It's gone now. Cannot start video,
and it's gone.
Yeah, that's it. That's the end of me even having a camera on. Yeah, I just get an error when I try to turn it back on. So enjoy my stupid face with a mustache for a while, guys. The hell were we just talking about? Terrence Davis.
The Kings starting lineup and whatever dumb things they do with their stupid minutes.
Yeah, like I don't pay too close attention to anything over the weekend. I don't play on Saturdays and Sundays. Like I'm just not around. So I catch up on everything Monday morning. And I started looking at that Kings rotation when I hop on the process show today. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this information? Like Chimezie Metu and Damian Jones play the final 16 minutes of the game. They didn't play before that. I assume they don't play today. That maybe they earned more playing time because of that. Terrence Davis went from playing a ton to basically being out of the rotation. None of it made sense to me. And I'm not all that confident that it's going to start making sense moving forward. Cavs will start Garland, Okoro, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen. At least for the first piece of news that comes in for this show, it's exactly what we expected.
Yeah, and there are some, I guess we could sum up all the injuries we're waiting for right now. I saw some people ask about it in the chat, and there are starting lineups that I think could be pretty important. Sacramento, who knows what the hell they're going to do with their starting lineup. So that's certainly something to look out for. Toronto, I assume Chris Boucher starts, but maybe that's something that could potentially pivot with them. Here are the key players that are currently questionable. Jaren Jackson Jr., DeAndre Ayton, Desmond Bane, Will Barton, Steven Adams, Aaron Gordon, and I guess Nick Batum to a smaller extent just because Paul George is out. But those are the ones that I really think could create value today.
I'm responding to someone in chat right now that lives really close to me.
Oh, are they coming over? Is he coming over to fix your internet?
Well, it's not the internet. I think it's my cam link. That's the problem here. It's weird because I look at the screen that's attached to the cam. I'm using hand gestures now, like anybody sees this shit. The screen just stays active. It's like if you guys could see what I see, it's great. But unfortunately, you see the opposite.
So here's a question. Here's an issue I run into sometimes. If I'm recording something on StreamYard in the morning, sometimes I'll accidentally leave it open, and then I'll try to get into Zoom and it won't work. Are you perhaps doing something else and streaming yourself for whatever various purposes on any other sites?
No. Okay. I don't have an OnlyFans.
I don't believe you. But okay.
I don't have the goods for that, man. Nobody's paying for that. Not the right kind of people, at least.
Hey, there's some people in chat that would.
Yeah, that's not helpful either. Given that I know that our analytics on the back end are 99% male in this chat, I don't need them to subscribe to whatever OnlyFans I would start.
Were you outside of a school when you took that picture?
You know, I'm not allowed to be within 500 feet of a school.
Fair enough. That is risky.
I actually am ready to go do that again. Getting a straight razor shave was awesome. Really, really fun to do that. Really nice, warm towels, like fun lotions and stuff. It's a good time.
Yeah, and we could use another picture for when your camera craps out again next Monday.
Yeah, we probably can. So let's go to flyers at the forward position. Who's not getting ownership that you have a bit of interest in?
All right, so let's sort by forward exposure. And, if he starts, I think Marvin Bagley is pretty low, in my opinion, just for the upside there. We have him projected for ownership in the teens on DK. I think he's a really strong option. This ownership would likely go up if he's ruled in, but Jaren Jackson Jr. is only projected for 1% ownership right now on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, he's projected for 14% ownership. I know that 14% ownership on FanDuel isn't a crazy low number, but if Jaren Jackson Jr. had no injury designation at 6,400 in this spot, he'd be like 60% owned on FanDuel. So hopefully this is news that comes out after lock and he just goes egregiously under owned, because right now I think Triple J looks really, really good on both sites.
Yeah, you and I are in the exact same boat for him. I have a lot, and I'm not mad about that at all. I don't really see a situation. Right now, he's my most exposed player. I haven't begun to make any tweaks because he is getting driven up by what I believe to be an artificial ownership projection. If he ultimately gets ruled in, I think I do bump it a couple points, but I'm expecting Jaren Jackson to be one of my highest owned guys. 6,400 today is a price tag that's exceptional. And the fact that you can put him at both spots is also incredible. Heat will start Lowry, Vincent, Robinson, Tucker, Dedmon. Feeling a little bit better there?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we expected was going to be the starting lineup before, and we'll see if this changes his ownership. But at least as of now, Gabe Vincent 4,200 on DK at single digit ownership. That's a number I'd want to be way overweight to.
All righty. Some of the flyers that I've got going at the forward spots, anxious to get your thoughts. $6,600 Miles Turner on FanDuel just because he's 6% owned, and every once in a while that dude's, oh no, what happened?
We got the Kings starting lineup. It's dumber than we could have imagined.
Fox, Halliburton, Barnes, Metu, Len. I said it this morning. I wouldn't be surprised by it. I don't have him projected for a single minute right now. That's the Kings for you. All righty. So I would be very, very nervous going to Marvin Bagley today.
Yes, absolutely. No interest. Here's actually what are the actual salaries on these guys? So Bagley is 3,800 on DK. Metu is not even in our ownership projections right now. So let's see. What is the salary on Metu?
I can get there. Metu is 4,200 center only on FanDuel, which let's just start here. That's some really stupid shit. He is 4K on DraftKings, also just power forward. So way more interesting on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. FanDuel is just an annoying price tag. Let's talk about it like this, though. I would assume Chimezie Metu starting, we're going to say at least 20 to 22 minutes right out of the gate. That's just sort of like a baseline. The question is, does he close?
Probably not, potentially, but I'm looking through his box scores now, and he's averaging 26 minutes per game as a starter this year. He has played over 30 minutes twice. So it seems like the most likely outcome based on his other starts is around 25 minutes.
Okay, so I gave him 24 just for right now. The question then becomes, what do we do with Marvin Bagley?
I am not going to be playing him. Just the minutes go directly from Bagley to Metu, in my opinion.
And let's also not forget, Mo Harkless is back. Like, they don't even have to go to Bagley as a backup if they don't want to.
I don't know that Harkless is going to be in the rotation.
Oh, no, I agree. But I also didn't think that Chimezie Metu was going to play today.
Yeah, fair enough. I also did not give Metu minutes, and now he's starting. So
Boucher's starting, by the way.
Okay, cool. So Chris Boucher, great play on FanDuel and DraftKings. No issues with playing him as chalk today. I'm really curious to see what Metu's ownership ends up being. I mean, he's a pretty good pointsman and fantasy producer overall for the year. Metu is playing. Let's see. So for the year, Metu 22.6 minutes per game, 21.46 DraftKings points, so nearly a fantasy point per minute. He's fairly cheap. He's got forward eligibility, so we can play him in the forward spot. We play in the power forward spot. I think Metu is, I mean, I have him projected for right around 25 fantasy points. And if people aren't going to play him, which that remains to be seen when we get our next ownership projection, I want to get him as a value play.
So let me look and see how I have him now. Yeah, I mean, I think he looks like a solid enough value play at both sites. I think he's basic. I don't want to say that he's unplayable on FanDuel, but he is no priority whatsoever, even with him being in the starting lineup. We can't be sure enough of his minutes, and being center only on a day like today, particularly on FanDuel, makes him basically impossible.
Yeah, if he had forward eligibility, it would have been a totally different story on FanDuel, but he doesn't, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you should start hemorrhaging those Marvin Bagley shares that you had, though. That's for sure. All right, time to run a new crunch.
Yeah, it's funny. I just saw Larry C threw in the YouTube chat that Metu is projected for 4 minutes. I had him projected for 0 minutes. So yeah,
same.
It's the way this dumb Kings team goes. Terrence Davis was legitimately one of their best players for 10 days, and they just dropped him out of the rotation after he played well for no reason at all. He played a game against Charlotte. He played 22 minutes. He scored 38 DraftKings points in 22 minutes. He was scoring. He was rebounding. He was playing decent defense. The next game, we're like, we can't have this in our lineup anymore. We have too many good players, the Sacramento Kings.
Who do you think's ahead of, who do you think's closer to the top of the rotation today? Terrence Davis or Marvin Bagley?
Terrence Davis.
I agree. Just fits better against the Raptors. Miss Unique, I guess, is the way that I would say that. Had the super chat, said, what are your thoughts on book night? Thanks again for everything. Y'all haven't cashed out on my 13 Gs. Nice. 13 Gs. Gotta love it. I have absolutely no interest in James book night now that Terry Rozier is back.
Yeah, so the different situation with and also they have PJ Washington back for the team as well. So the other day when Book Night had a really big game, they had nobody to play. They started Vernon Carey, and I fell for that trap and felt like a moron after the night was over, but he only played a handful of minutes. And they had all these other guys also, like they were playing Kai Jones some minutes. They were really thin. That's not the case anymore. That Terry Rozier and PJ Washington's back. So Book Night might not even be in the rotation today.
Yeah, I don't think I gave him anything significant. I got him in for 8 minutes today. So yeah, he is fully off the table for me.
Yeah, I don't even have him in the rotation today.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play at all. That's another reason why I like Cody Martin, because I can give James Book Night minutes and still get Cody Martin to a pretty sizable chunk. And if they decide to not play Book Night and stick to 8 guys, I think Cody Martin's playing 36 or more, and then I feel even more correct.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
Nice. All right. Obviously, we mentioned pretty casually that Boucher is in. I think we were all just sort of assuming he was starting to begin with. So I don't really have anything new to add to that. He looked good before that. Now you can feel pretty confident about it.
Yeah, even being conservative with Boucher's minutes, I get a lot of exposure to him. He's a really good pointsman and fantasy producer. It's a positive matchup against the Kings. And he's starting. So there's a decent enough floor for his minutes. There are games in the past where Chris Boucher has been chalk, and Nick Nurse just plays anybody but Chris Boucher. That's not the scenario where Boucher starts. Overall for the season, he scores over a fantasy point per minute, and at worst, he's probably playing 22, 23 minutes.
Zach McMurray with the super chat. Pick 2 on FanDuel, Levert, Hero, or Gary Trent. That would be Hero and Trent for me.
Yeah, Hero and Trent for me. Let me look, though.
I don't think they're all... Well, I think Hero is pretty clearly the top one, at least for me right now. You can sort of flip a coin on Levert or Trent, but I'll bet on the minutes for Trent.
I think I go Levert over Hero.
Okay. Whoa. Levert over Hero.
I've been really high on Levert for a while.
So was I, and now his salary isn't $4,800 like it was a week and a half ago.
Yeah, well, it's still cheaper than Hero.
Yeah. I don't have a strong lean to any of those guys. Like, I've got Hero at 34.8 fantasy points. I've got Trent at 32.5. I've got Levert at 30.7. So you move 1 minute in a couple different directions for those guys, and they're all basically the exact same projection. So they're well within the error bars for each other. Derek Milner says, do you think Justice Winslow will get run tonight? 3,200 on DraftKings. Probably not. The Batum news will be a big piece of that information. If he does play, he's also not someone that I'm really worried about getting to.
Yeah. So if you're playing the late slate and that's the scenario where you're looking for a flyer on somebody, because Winslow did play 15 minutes last game, I would not play him on the main slate. If you're just looking at the 2-game late slate or whatever it is on DK, maybe it's the maybe there's a 3-game late slate. If it's a 2 or 3 game slate, okay. For the main slate, absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah, we're on the same page there. Anything else here with regards to forwards? Because that has not been a book we've closed.
No, we have not. Let's see. So forwards, we talked about Porzingis, Bagley. Underweight to the field on Collins. Talked about. Oh, here's another flyer play that I like the upside of. Kevin Love on DK at 4,500. There is no rhyme or reason to his box scores. And there are still times that Kevin Love shows himself to be an excellent pointsman and fantasy producer. Here are his last 4 games. 26 DraftKings points, 19, 46, 18. The game he scored 46 DraftKings points, he did it in 23 minutes. He's fairly low owned today, and at a 4,500 price tag, I do think there's upside in Kevin Love. Not that he's one of my favorite plays on the slate, but I'm about double field on him at his 4% ownership.
I have nothing to add there. I get the flyer. I don't have Kevin Love, but like he certainly has the ability to put up a lot of fantasy points in a small amount of time. All right.
Yeah.
Just making an update here.
Yeah, he does it like once or twice a week. So it's somebody who I've been trying to get in my player pool when he's really low owned, just because he's the clear boomer bust nature of a GPP play, and just people don't roster him.
Letting my stuff refresh. Perfect. Got it. Let's talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Yahoo Fantasy. We've got a pretty damn good deal for you. 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. If you use the link in the description of this video. You need to be new to Yahoo. But if you sign up for an account using that link, make a deposit, and then play, that's all you got to do. Yahoo will then send us your name after you play in your first paid contest. We will then reach out to you via email with a coupon code for you. If you need immediate access, you can email support@awesemo.com. We can get you set up. You can also claim a free $10 of site credit just by using that link. So definitely do that. You can use that money to enter any Yahoo contest, including tonight's $100,000 Monday NFL Baller. Or if you just want to put that money on ice until Sunday, where they have gigantic $200,000 guaranteed overlay contest, you should probably do that as well. We've got DFS tools and projections at awesemo.com to give you your best shot at winning big. So make sure you're taking advantage of this offer. Go check out Yahoo now. Per Larry C., ownership update has Metu to 3%. How you feeling?
Overweight for that number.
Okay. I assume he doesn't even register on FanDuel, but it does, I'm imagining, yank out Bagley as any sort of viable play. So yeah. 58 seconds ago, ownership was updated.
Bagley's actually projected for 3x the ownership of Metu right now. I do not agree with that. Over on FanDuel, Bagley is 6% owned on FanDuel. Metu is 2%.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to be getting either one of those guys. Let's see if anything major changed. I'm getting to the point now where I have to start making some tweaks. Yeah, no, nothing too crazy. Just jamming in Jaren Jackson and Cody Martin right now, which I will slowly but surely work my way away from. I
have no issue with jamming in Triple J, especially if we get some Adams and or Bane out.
I'm with you. Turns out, as of this moment, I do have a small amount of Chimezie Metu. Did not see that coming.
We're not that far removed from him being a chalk play.
Yeah,
like a massive chalk play.
Oh, he's just got a terrible positional designation. That's why I didn't think that I was going to get to him.
If
you were a power forward or power forward center or something, I would expect to be there just as a value option. I didn't think I would get there just because center is loaded.
I'm just saying in a general sense, I think it's just weird to me that Metu would only end up being 3% owned today with power forward eligibility on DK, when at basically the exact same price 2 weeks ago, he was like 40% owned.
It is kind of crazy. We just can't. It's so hard to trust the Kings. I feel this is going to sound dumb, but like I feel like they were more trustworthy 2 weeks ago.
No, I don't agree with that either. But I think overall they're untrustworthy. I think I could see it from, if I'm trying to stretch reset, I could see it from this angle though. They had a crappy coach that at least we knew was a crappy coach, and when they bring in a new coach, it just changes the rotations. And I think there is a lot of tinkering and mixing around lineups just from a standpoint of trying to find something because the Kings have nothing.
Yeah, they really do have absolutely nothing. The reason I said that I thought it was more consistent is they came out and said like Chimezie Metu is going to start for the next 5 games and we're going to give him a test. But at that moment I was like, yeah, well, let's jam this dude in. And then he went from like starting 5 straight games to new coach, fully out of the rotation, hops back in for a game, fully back out of the rotation again. Now back in after playing just garbage time their last time out. I don't trust these guys. Brogdon, Duarte, LeVert, Sabonis, Turner, starting lineup for the Pacers. That is not news either. Rates are starting to get tweaked a little bit. All right, so we've put this off long enough. One, we're at 777 likes. As much as I don't want to bust up the slot machine nature of that, please hit the like button once again. If we can get north of 800, that'd be fun. Let's talk Memphis. What is your expectation for these dudes? Who are you willing to go to now? I mean, we've talked about Jaren Jackson a bit, but what are you doing with Bane or Brooks or Steven Adams?
So let me bring up just Memphis in Fantasy Cruncher. Jaren Jackson Jr. clearly my favorite of the bunch, yes. Especially on FanDuel. Crazy price point. Number 2, also, I've been pretty heavy on Dylan Brooks lately. I don't see a reason to change that right now. There could potentially be guys out that give him more minutes. Dylan Brooks loves to shoot the basketball when he's on the court, and he has a usage rate over 30% ever since John Morant got hurt. And we even in a scenario where all of Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, and Steve Adams play, I would still want to go overweight to the field on Dylan Brooks. And then we also have the added potential of one of those guys could get ruled out and filter even more usage to Dylan Brooks. So to me, he's going really overlooked as a guy who loves to chuck when he's on the court.
He certainly does love to shoot, man. That guy has never met a shot he didn't like. As of right now, I'm getting to a little bit more Bane. I'm pretty neutral to Brooks. We have Bane projected for basically no ownership, so I'm just kind of hoping that he ultimately gets ruled in, and there are plenty of easy swaps on a $6,500 Desmond Bane that I can make somewhere around 745. So that's fine. Jaren Jackson, obviously the guy that I've got a large stand on. And then I'm still happy to get to Tyus Jones at 5,900. He's just going to play a ton of minutes. No reason for me to be super worried there. Oh man, I've got some really weird, honestly, here's 4 guys that have sub 10% ownership that I have about 20% of. And I'm not mad about any of them. Terrence Mann, DeAndre Ayton, Christian Wood, PJ Washington. Clearly there's some risk of not playing, but I'm happy to get those guys as low owned today.
So let's see. Still talking about forwards. I brought up Kevin Love before.
We can go to centers if you'd like. Close that loop. 12 minutes to go.
And the only one I'd say is Dylan Brooks is right now projected for single-digit ownership on DK at least, unless that changed in the last run. And he is he's at 9% on DK, and I've over 20% of him. So I was trying to match you by finding a single-digit owned guy that I also had over 20% of.
I like it. Yeah, the one that I like the most though is for sure probably Christian Wood, who 8,400, 6.5% owned, just doesn't just sees a gigantic usage bump when no Jalen Green and no Kevin Porter Jr. are on the floor. Kyle Lowry wearing a mask during pregame warmups for the second straight game. I don't know what kind of mask, if it's like a COVID style or if he's got the Bane mask on, but he is wearing a mask, the screen mask perhaps.
If he's wearing the Bane mask and it's just pumping steroids into him, I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, I wish they could do that.
Which player would benefit the most from just having Bane steroids infused into their body?
LeBron.
I feel like he's already got that in his system, though. I would say Who's a player who's really skinny that could benefit? I would say Kevin Durant. Imagine just a roided up KD showing up one day.
Evan Mobley.
Nah, it's Durant for me.
I mean, I'm not mad about that Durant one. He would just look so weird.
Yeah, I just want Durant to show up looking like Barry Bonds with a giant head one day.
Could you imagine? It would be so great. I'm so pro steroids.
Absolutely the same. I would say
I don't want it in MMA unless it could be on an even playing field. But like for basketball, just give me the best product you could possibly find.
Yeah, just get these guys a bunch of EPO and they run up and down the court without ever getting tired.
Right. Yeah. Like I don't want a guy on I don't want Vitor Belfort to fight guys that are like playing it clean. Like you can die. You can legitimately die. Like nobody's dying from this.
Yeah.
From like a hard dunk.
Yeah. Michael Bisping's got one eye that he takes out on broadcasts.
Yeah. I mean, not that I'm a huge Luke Rockhold fan, but I mean, Belfort hit him with a wheel kick, and I thought it was going to just like separate him from life.
And well, he never was really able to take shots after that, so it did to an extent.
It really did. Are there any other guys that I would like to see just on the gas? I mean, if we want to be like really funny about it, it would be hysterical to see like Boban do it.
Oh yeah, we get behind Boban. I saw somebody in chat say Bobo. That would be another one.
Oh yeah, the similar vein to like the Evan Mobley, Kevin Durant, like. I mean, Brandon Ingram would probably make him like significantly better. I mean, because he can't get through a screen.
I mean, I would say Alex Caruso just because I think that would be a good bit for our company. So Caruso would be another good one.
What we need to do is just get the boss man on the Bane gas and see where we end up with it.
Get him doing some more push-ups.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get Zion on that. He's trying to do it with just cheeseburgers at this point. Favorite centers, just however you want to do this.
Nikola Jokic, my favorite pay up option on the slate. He has massive upside, and I whenever any of these slates where Jokic is on them, I just get to him way more than every other pay up option. He's been ridiculously good this year. Everybody on Denver's hurt right now, and we also have, in addition to the Jamal Murray's, Michael Porter Jr.'s, PJ Dozier's of the world not being on the team. We've got Aaron Gordon and Will Barton both questionable today. If either or both of those guys are out, that's even more usage that filters to Jokic. There's enough value on the slate. It's not hard to get to him. He's the best pay up option by a wide margin to me.
I'm with you, I believe. Ooh, I was with you earlier. I am not with you any longer. Well, maybe I am.
Who do you like more?
So on FanDuel now, I have more Embiid. Okay. He's $900 cheaper than Jokic and 10% less owned. And I think Embiid is walking into, well, if Steven Adams plays, it doesn't change anything for me, but he's potentially walking into a really, really nice situation.
Yep, that's fair enough. I've had just every slate where Jokic is on, I haven't projected for like 12 more fantasy points than the second best projected player on the slate.
That's usually the case for me too. And it is a pretty big gap on Embiid right now. The ownership is helping out. Normally people aren't also getting to Jokic, and it has me soaring up to like 45%. That it doesn't appear to be the case right now. All right. Starting to make some lineups here. Any other centers that you're getting to? Like, what are you doing with some of those payout options that exist on DraftKings? Because center's a little bit different on DK than it is on FanDuel today.
Yeah, so the number one priority for me, like I said, is Jokic. We talked about Chris Boucher before. He is center eligibility. That's actually a lot of my center exposure, Jokic and Boucher.
Okay.
Other guys, I like Dwayne Dedmon for the upside. His minutes are also all over the place. But if you capture the ceiling games from Dedmon, they're very worthwhile. And he's priced in between his production. What I mean by that is we see games from Dedmon where it's like he has 40 fantasy points. He has 15 fantasy points. Actually, here are the last 4 games from Dedmon. 29 fantasy points, 15, 13, 44. And he's just priced as a guy who regularly scores mid-20s fantasy points. He is not going to play to salary expectations. It's either going to be well below it or well above it based on what we've seen. For tournaments, that's a situation I usually like, particularly when somebody isn't popular. And right now we have Dwayne Dedmon projected for 8% ownership on DK. On FanDuel, he's 3%, but he's also more expensive, $5,700. So not really somebody I want to get to there. But DK, I do actually really like that 5,000 salary.
Yeah, 5,700 on FanDuel is not somebody that I'm getting to. I'm getting to Zubats at that spot, which I'm super, super, super happy about. One, has just been playing more minutes as of late. Two, it saves me, it locks me into the ability to get to JaVale if need be. I do already have a pretty good chunk of DeAndre Ayton too, so I should be able to move around. In hindsight, I wish I went back and made all of my DeAndre Ayton lineups force in one additional person from that game, but I did not do that before, and there is no chance that I have the time to do that now. Want to talk about your most exposed players? You want to just sum it up with all of our stuff?
We got a super chat too, but also I wanted to read a funny comment from Orton's Neckbeard. Mustache Josh was on gear, which that made me chuckle inside. But also a super chat from Tyler Hitchcock. He asked for FanDuel, Dinwiddie and Mann, or Reggie Jackson and Armani Brooks.
That's got to be Reggie Jackson and Brooks for me.
I don't know what to do with Armani Brooks. I lean towards Dinwiddie and Mann, but it's clearly Reggie Jackson and Brooks if Brooks starts again.
Yeah, that we're on the same page for. I am uploading my lineups right now, so we are good to go there. Another super chat from C Shred. Yahoo Cash. Shit. Trey and Clint Capella, or Jokic and McGee, assuming Ayton's out. I mean, I would not be putting JaVale McGee into a cash lineup right now, just assuming that DeAndre Ayton's out. So it's got to be the first group.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer it this way. If you are assuming Ayton is out, it would be McGee, but you should not be assuming that Ayton is out, particularly for cash games. So Trey Young and Clint Capella.
Yeah, that you can't make those sorts of assumptions in a cash scenario. Not in this setup, because you can't go from JaVale to back to Ayton if you need to down the line. Now, look, JaVale's a great, if you're going to have somebody in that scenario where you're like taking a shot on that being right, JaVale's not the worst guy in the world, because if he plays 16 minutes, he can still be a perfectly acceptable play in his run, given what he does on a per minute basis. But that's not the way you should approach a cash game.
Yeah, totally agree. McGee, no go for cash. If we get news in 30 minutes that Ayton's out, then play as much JaVale McGee as possible. But as of now, he shouldn't be in a cash lineup.
No, I'm with you there. All right. So some of my most exposed plays. Jaren Jackson is at the top of that list. Embiid is going to pick up 4 fouls on Embiid if he's in almost immediately. I see that one coming very, very easily. Reggie Jackson, very highly owned for me. Chris Boucher. I am heavy on Cody Martin. I'm most certainly way too heavy on Cody Martin. Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, Bradley Beal, Tobias Harris. All over it here today. I am light-ish on Jalen Brunson, which I'm not happy about, but he is currently in. We're projecting 54% ownership, and these are the type of players that we've seen so far this year that we project for 54, and he comes in at like 66. So we'll see there.
So for me on DK, Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie, Bradley Beal, Gabe Vincent, Gary Trent Jr., Chris Boucher, Kristaps Porzingis, Nikola Jokic.
I like it. I'm excited for this slate. I wasn't earlier today. I am now.
It's going to be interesting when players get rolled out. These are not the players I'm going to have in my lineups 35 minutes from now. I have a feeling.
Jaren Jackson is getting some post work in right now, per a tweet. So that for sure makes me feel really happy. I don't know if that's going to matter or not, but I am definitely, more than anybody else on this slate, I want him to play.
For sure. Because that ownership is egregious right now. He was
How much do you have of him?
Let's see. Jaren Jackson Jr., 40% on FanDuel.
Yeah, I got 48. So we are in the same boat. I'm liking this slate, but I feel like I'm pretty different. This is going to be one of those, like, you get it all back, or you've got like 6 of them in the top 1% and you've given yourself a shot days. Like Friday, for example, was a give it all back, which was not ideal.
I don't even remember Friday slate.
So I remember it because Thursday went really well for me, finished 8th, had probably the best day that I've had so far in the NBA this year. And then FanDuel bumped their main contest to $15 entry. And I think I cashed like 7 lineups.
Yeah, well, that's certainly suboptimal. Really quick, I want to answer this super chat before the slate locks. Brian Robinson, Kennard or Harrison Barnes, DK single entry, Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, Harrison Barnes. Gotta be. And I don't think it's close.
No, and it was an easy one I saw pop up. Want to make sure I answered it right before we hit lock, and we're at lock.
We are at lock. Boom. Got it. That right there was, Steven Adams, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson, all available.
There we go. Perfect. Load up on Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yes, load up on Jaren Jackson Jr. is right. I mean, now that that's the end, like what it is, I wish that would have happened in 59 minutes from now. But yeah. I am already on a little bit of Desmond Bain. I am already on a little bit of Jaren Jackson. I am feeling good here. Greg, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, just good luck today, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and watch the NFL Live Before Lock content tonight.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. I'm looking back at the camera as if that matters. You guys can't see me being all crazy. I'm looking like one of those wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men right now, moving my hands around. Nobody cares. Good luck tonight, everybody. Win some money. We're back again tomorrow, doing it all again. This is Awesemo.com. We are awesome.